All right, good evening, everyone. The time being a little bit past 7 o'clock, officially open tonight's school committee meeting. First order of business is approval of the minutes of the October 18, 2018 meeting. Do I hear a motion? Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made. Any discussion? I took a look. They were a very nice summary considering I wasn't here last time we got together. So hearing no discussion, all in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Next order of business, chairperson's report. Just a very quick one tonight. Mary and I had the opportunity to attend the initiation ceremony for the National Honor Society on Tuesday night in the high school auditorium. And I thought it was a really powerful and a really special event. It was really, really cool to watch members of our community induct new members into their society. And each of the new members was introduced, and there was a small speech about why they were being nominated above and beyond just their academic performance. And I was just, as I always am, I was floored by the number of amazing things that our young people do, above and beyond just being students. There was a lot of mention of Girl Scouts and athletic programs and the volunteer programs and the food bank and all of the things that they're involved in, and it absolutely floored me. So I want to compliment AJ and the members of the National Honor Society Board and the advisors for a really excellent ceremony on Tuesday night, and congratulate all 15 of the newest members of the National Honor Society from the junior class at Maynard High School. So thank you, AJ, and other members of the group. Second, football game tomorrow night, playoff game. So go Tigers. For those of us who can make it, hop and pop out to Leominster. For those of us who can't, we'll be with you in spirit. And next week, several members of our board are going to be traveling down to Hyannis for the MASC-MASS joint conference. And that's the Mass Association of School Committees and the Mass Association of School Superintendents joint conference that happens every November in Hyannis. And it's a really interesting conference because we're going as school committee members, but I also enjoy the opportunity as a professional educator to get involved in some of the sessions that are presented there. And this year, a lot of the really big topics are around social emotional learning and budgeting and finance and 21st century schools. And a lot of those sessions are really going to try and are going to support what we're trying to do here in Maynard. So I'm really excited for that. And thank you to Mauro for coming down, and Bethlyn, I believe you're coming down also. So we'll report back on some of the things that we learned, some of the things that we're going to be trying to bring back to the schools at a later date to be determined. So I believe that wraps up my chairperson's report. Dr. Girardi, what do you have for a superintendent's report tonight?
It's been a busy couple of weeks since the last time we met, and I'm just so excited about all the positivity that I've seen since our last meeting. As part of the evaluation process, I think the evaluation rounds, principals going on, I can see lots of happy teachers and lots of happy kids and lots of learning going on, really good learning going on, deep learning. It's pretty amazing. And then I learned about what our teachers and administrators are working on together, big programs that the school committee has asked them to do. I want to remind everybody that we're holding a celebrating Maynard High School event coming up on November 7th. It was originally designed for 8th grade families, but thanks to Mary Braley's recommendation at the last school committee meeting, Kevin Caruso actually opened it up to 7th grade families as well and students. And he says that he's been receiving RSVPs, and he already has 80 people registered to attend, so he's pretty excited about that. I'm not going to give you all of the information that he kind of shared with me the beginnings of his PowerPoint, but in his PowerPoint, he actually did a survey, which I'll share with the school committee once he gives it to me on Google Drive, asking reasons why people chose to leave Maynard and reasons why people chose to stay. So I thought I'd read some of the reasons why people stayed at Maynard High School. Maynard High School offers a well-rounded environment of social, academic, artistic, and athletic offerings where everyone is welcome to participate and be part of the community. 9th grade parent. Another one, my child is getting great support so far, and my child is enjoying school. My child even found a club class that she enjoys. 9th grade parent. Music in Maynard is exceptional. Chorus, band, a cappella, etc. The radio show is a big reason, and the class sizes. Maynard schools have been a positive influence for my children. Because of its small size, Maynard, I could go on and on. I'll save that for the event, and share once Kevin shares more of that information in the survey data. I will share that with the school committee.
Okay.
But we're very excited about that event coming up. I've also received some very positive emails that I wanted to share with the community, as I think it speaks to our family, our friends, our students, and our staff, and their character. And the first one is an email that Kevin Caruso received. Can you tell I did my walkthrough with Kevin today? So I got a lot of stuff from Kevin today. And he is also a principal half-time, but also an athletic director, so he knows all the athletic directors. This parent who emailed him is an athletic director who lives in another community who we happen to be playing field hockey against. And what the parent wrote was, "Hi Kevin, while I'm no longer AD, I am a field hockey mom. So I was at the game yesterday here at our school. We have had a rough year as far as visiting fans go. My player is one of 2 boys on the team and has taken a lot of heckling and nasty comments from sideline parents and fans. It's been frustrating to say the least." So Kevin read that first paragraph and got a little nervous. What she wrote was, "First off, the game yesterday was amazing. Both teams played so hard and with such heart. They never gave up or backed off, and it was a long game. They should be proud of themselves. Secondly, your fans were great. I did make sure to tell a few of them that they were great. They were respectful, they cheered, but were not derogatory or taunting, which, like I said, we've sadly seen more than once this season. They commented that they appreciated our fans too, being appropriate as games like this can often get heated. My son said the handshake line was the best one all year, and everyone said great game and was genuine," which speaks a lot to our students and our student athletes. "It just was everything a game should be. Great competition, great sportsmanship, great fans. Your girls played so well and so hard and with class. I just wanted you to know, best of luck with the rest of your teams." And then she goes on, "I know boys soccer will be heading our way next Sunday." But anyway, I thought that spoke, really positively about our fans, our parents, our fans, our students and our student athletes, and our coaches, because Brenda Sullivan is the coach of that team, who was the guest speaker at the National Honor Society. So I wanted to give her kudos, because she gave a really wonderful speech. And AJ, a little credit to you too, as being the president of National Honor Society and being the master of ceremonies. He did a great job as well. So that was one email. A team of our teachers at the Fowler got a really nice email. It included the special ed department chair, and the parent asked to forward it to them. And so he says, "Hi, Chris. We just wanted to say thank you and your team. Please thank them for their expertise, but also their caring and kindness. They have shown our child during their assessments, the caring and kindness they have shown our child during their assessments. I have the highest respect and admiration for what the individuals do on your team every day helping children learn. I didn't want to miss anyone, so please forward this as you see appropriate. Enjoy your delivery on Friday, just a small way to show our appreciation. Thank you." And the delivery was, the parents sent edible arrangements to the team.
Nice.
Isn't that wonderful? It's just so heartening. So I really wanted to share those emails. That was really heartening. And like I said, I've been doing a lot of walking around in the buildings, and today I was walking in Fowler and I saw an amazing educational moment. One of our students was being taught to navigate with a probing cane, because they have visual impairments. They were walking through the hallway, taught how to go up the stairs. And I just thought to myself, what a wonderful, rewarding profession educators have. We're just so lucky to be part of that. And it's really kudos to all of our staff, everybody in the building. We know the custodians, when we were at the event the other night, who care so much about the buildings and really provide wonderful, clean buildings, and the paras and the teachers and all of our staff. It is really rewarding, and it really is special to see, how we help students in such significant ways. And that's my report.
Excellent. Thanks, Dr. Girardi. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to come out from behind the camera and step in front of the camera and give us your student representative report tonight.
Hello. So I guess I'll start with this. So we're in playoffs. We are. Okay.
He was a little close.
We are on a playoff season now for sports. So unfortunately, the field hockey team I know lost. So they're going to be out, unfortunately. The soccer team is still going. They have playoff games this Saturday, I believe. They are home, I'm pretty sure. So I know a lot of the Maynard population will want to go check those out. And I know you guys have mentioned him, but yes, we did have the induction this past Tuesday. It was really nice to see all the new members, most of whom I know, be inducted into NHS, and I'm looking forward to having the extra help. I know I already posted a bunch of things that we're going to be doing now that they are inducted, and that's off our shoulders now for an event. I know one of them's homecoming, but we also have to help run like parent-teacher conferences coming up. We're going to have extra tutors around the school. So again, you'll see that passing down of knowledge to the other grades who may not understand some things well as the older grades do. But besides that, I guess we can go kind of into AVM.
Yep, so back into AVM world, telethon, just a little update. So we worked very closely with the Wicked Local newspaper, and we're thrilled to announce that we're going to be accepting online donations for the telethon this year. Nice. Into the modern world. So it's been, they were absolutely amazing. They were very, very helpful. So that will be coming up very shortly, as well as our, the telethon website is being redone currently. It's almost done. If you go to wvm.org/telethon, you can see everything. It's not completely done, but it'll be done by the end of this week. So we're super excited about that. We just came from a tech crew meeting, so definitely working hard, teaching all 23 people the ins and outs of technology in the station. And AJ, if you want to go.
So I and a group of us, we got invited by, I believe it was the lead teachers in our school. On November 7th, we're actually going to be speaking on a panel to upcoming parents for the high school. I'm fairly certain Dr. Girardi may have heard of that. It's going to be around 6 that night. We're going to be speaking to everyone about like our experience at Maynard High School and what's made it good. And we're having a meeting about that tomorrow actually, so we'll have more info on that. It will pass by the next time we'll see each other, so we can kind of get back to you on what actually happened at it then. But besides that, I know Pat might have a little more info about Spirit Week.
Yep, so Spirit Week, November, the week before Thanksgiving. I really don't remember the dates, but it's the week before Thanksgiving. We had a student government meeting about it today, going over the details and what we want part of the pep rally. So people are really excited about that. We're trying to raise money for a charity this year. Student government is kicking away. And then one last thing, you might have heard about it, but myself and 3 other WVM students, we submitted a video for the Massachusetts Department of Transportation video contest, and we were named grand prize winner of the junior-senior category. So we went to Boston today and attended their press conference this year, their 2018 Moving Together conference, and we got to meet the Secretary of Transportation. We took pictures, and then all 900 people that attended watched our video. So it was a great experience. So.
How long was your video?
It was a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just a standard PSA length.
PSAs are always, yeah.
Very cool.
It's a commercial.
Yeah, yeah. So if you want to listen to it, it's on our YouTube channel, WVM Productions. It's a music video, so it's really catchy. So I highly recommend it. But yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's everything on our end, yeah, I believe.
Do you have any questions for us? Yeah.
Maybe the first time in a while, but thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Great news.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank, first I'd like to thank Dr. Girardi for personally speaking at the induction this past Tuesday, and for who attended here, Justin and
Justin.
You had your back to me the entire night. You wouldn't even-
You were busy.
there.
You were busy. You were busy.
I was mortified they made me sit on stage.
But thank you for attending. It really was it was a new kind of event for me, because this was really my first time speaking at an event like this.
Yeah.
I had given speeches before, but this was kind of just different. But thank you again for attending. And I think that's it.
It's one of my favorite events. I love that event every year. But the nice thing is that, the Maynard High School always tries to have students run all of our events, because the students really shine and represent Maynard so well. So, again, AJ, you did a great job.
Thank you.
What amazed me was no one was nervous. You guys were just
You didn't look it.
amazing. And if you were, it didn't come through in your voice or in your
Yeah.
manner. I mean, I was really, really impressed, so great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's just amazing.
So before we go to the next item on our agenda, I did want to add one thing that I forgot to mention during my chairperson's report, and I thought Dr. Girardi might have touched on it during his superintendent's report, but just a community-based update that it was last Friday that 23 of our students went and toured the Assabet Regional Vocational Technical High School. That was a topic of conversation that came up during our listening session back in, was that October that we did that? The months are blending together. But there was some concern as far as sort of how we had, as a school association, had sort of responded to some feedback that we received last year as far as time on learning and students being out of school and transportation concerns. So I just want to compliment the members of the community for some really thoughtful suggestions. I want to thank the administration for a really positive solution, because we were able to come up with a solution where the students attended the half day of school here in Maynard and then boarded the buses on an early release day and spent their afternoon at Assabet. So a lot of the concerns were addressed. We were able to do right by the students and the families that wanted to have that exposure to Assabet, and also we were able to address some of the concerns about time on learning and lost instructional time. So it was a nice solution, and it was very much a collaboration between the administration and some of the parents that came to our listening session to voice those concerns and also suggest some positive alternatives. And I'm really happy that it all worked out that way. So thank you for humoring me. I did want to circle back and just touch on that for the members of the community that are in the room and the members of the community that might ultimately watch this on the WAVM YouTube channel. So,
Can you also continue that? In
As
the
we move
past,
forward.
we've had some, alterations on it. If we could kind of,
That's a good
it did seem to work well.
Yeah.
So if we could maybe
Just
make
continue with
more
that.
solid,
Yeah.
that would be a really good thing, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a nice, like
Yep.
Justin said, it was a nice collaborative effort between the two schools
And
to
the
come
fact
up with a
that you
solution.
took away from learning time
Yeah.
and that.
Yep.
Yeah,
So we'll make sure to,
continue that.
make that a tradition.
beautiful. Thank you. All right, at this point in time, I want to pass the floor over to Jen Gaudet and Carol Gahan. And I do want to take some of the bullets out of order slightly, because I know that we have a number of our professional staff here tonight. So if you don't mind, can we take bullet 2 first and talk about the co-teaching model, so that some of our teachers who might want to go home have the opportunity to do that?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
That's great, thank you. Thank you. So we're actually going to turn it over to Jen and Lisa, because they have a presentation that they've created. So they'll give an update, and then we'll go on from there.
Should you introduce Jennifer and? Jennifer,
over here.
You can yank the mic down.
Oh, thank
so that you don't have to feel like you stand on your tiptoes there.
so,
I don't want to forget.
so
Thank you.
our two co-teaching teachers, Jennifer Fioretti and Lisa Boardman.
Yes, Jennifer Fioretti, Lisa Boardman.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure we introduced you, so that way.
Thank you. So this is our first year piloting the co-teaching program at Green Meadow. We're first grade teachers. We worked together last year. Lisa was a special educator that serviced students in my classroom.
Yes.
And we worked, we thought we worked really well together. So we're excited to hear about the opportunity, and we're implementing it this year. And, it's going well, we
Yes.
think. Always room for improvement.
Yep.
But we're really, happy with the successes that we've seen so far,
Yes.
and the parents really seem to be happy too.
And I think having that foundation of us working in the previous year really helped for us to, begin the co-teaching model this year. We already knew each other's teaching style and what worked best. So it's easy to co-plan together knowing that we have similar styles.
So here are just the different models of co-teaching. One teach, one observe, station teaching, parallel teaching, alternate teaching, teaming, and one teach, one assist. We went to a workshop in September and they said, never do one teach, one observe, never do, one teach, one assist really. And we really weren't doing that anyway, so we were thinking we were on the right track there.
Yes.
But most often, what you'll see, and you'll see it on the next slide too, is we're both up at the front of the room presenting material together. We feel like we both have a good command of the subject matter and, just the delivery to students. And because Lisa's been in special ed, and before teaching first grade, I was a kindergarten teacher, so, we're really good on working on our feet and being able to adapt and offer students, lots of differentiated instruction. But it's nice it's different than having a paraprofessional in the room who might not have the same, the same subject matter knowledge, and we do have that. So it's nice to just be able to jump in and play off each other.
Yeah, it is nice that.
Oh.
Yeah, I was just going to say, going back to the other slide, one of the models that we just tried today was having Jen lead foundations, and I had a smaller group running the same lesson. And that was nice for the students who need that extra time to either practice a skill or need that small group to help their bodies and brains stay in the group. So it was delivering the same content, but at different points in the classroom. And I think that worked really nicely for a handful of our students. So again, being able to differentiate and give students what they need.
And we're also willing to try different things. Like, we'll never say no to anything. And, Lisa has some ideas and she'll say, can we try this? And I'm always open to it, So I think that's another thing that's helpful, given it's our first year doing it, is just, being open to trying different things and doing what's best for, this group of kids. And that might look different next year for the other group of kids that we have.
And having time to just have those conversations before, last year, I'd be like, okay, can you meet at 8 o'clock? We got to talk about this friend today.
Yeah.
Whereas today, this year, we can talk all day, every day.
Yeah.
And it's just on the fly, or we do it during our preps, and it's just so nice to have that time and flexibility to really, figure out what these kids need.
Yeah. Which is one of the bullet points on our next slide. Just having daily conversations. Lisa did a group, earlier today, like she said, in foundations, and I did the larger group. And, after they were done, we did a movement break and debriefed about, how it went. But just even those 2-minute conversations are so powerful because, we're both like, okay, we know you're going to take these 2 kids at 8:45 tomorrow morning, and I'll take these 2, and and we'll target different skills, and so that's really nice too. And then, of course, the common planning time that we have this year that we haven't had in the past. That's just been so helpful too, because we're really, co-plan, co-instruct, co-assess, and so just the amount of assessments in general has increased this year. We're doing, weekly dipsticks of sight words and things like that.
Yep.
Just all sorts of different data that we're collecting.
And I think the fact that we can do more small group allows us that time to get more data for our instruction.
And then, we just put this about ironing out the kinks. Like we said earlier, we're new to it. It's not totally fine-tuned, but we think we're doing a really good job with what we've put in place so far.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out when should we collect data, what's the best time of day of the week, et cetera.
How often?
Right, exactly. And then determining which models work best. And like we said, it is first grade, so we do a lot of, station teaching. But, also, like we said, we tried something new today, and that seemed to go well too. So, and then just getting to know the students. Whenever I think that you have a group of kids like this, there are such various needs that they have. And so that's something that, like, right from the get-go, we just wanted to make sure, the behavior plans were in place, and just any tools they needed, whether it was flexible seating options or fidget toys, weighted blankets.
And just, academic tools. I think, having, the special ed instructor in the class helps for those tools to be generalized from that separate setting into the classroom. So, that follow through, that generalization, the maintenance, I think that really, helps having that co-teaching model for all those things to occur.
Absolutely, and like we said before, I mean, it's nice, working with special educator and having that time to talk to them, without the co-teaching. But when you are co-teaching, you're just having those conversations all the time.
Yes.
And I know what Lisa's doing, Lisa knows what I'm doing, and so that we feel like has been, incredibly beneficial too. And we have a little video. We asked the kids what they like about having 2 teachers in the room.
All right.
We don't have
Oh, no.
the speakers hooked up.
Oh, no.
That would help.
So I'm going to fill the air for a moment while Jen
Well,
fidgets.
Jen's working on that.
Lisa and Jennifer, Dr. Girardi and I were just talking because, Lisa, you may not know, but I'm a special educator also. And I've been doing the collaborative, we call it collaborative in my district, for 9 years, and I've had 9 different teaching partners in that time.
Wow.
Across multiple subjects. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I was just commenting to Dr. Girardi that I can see the connection between the two of you because you're finishing each other's sentences. And that's just, it's an informal indicator that what you have is working. And I'll comment more later, but I just want to thank both of you for pioneering this in our district. And I know it's a risk, and I have experienced the difficulty and the awkwardness and the sort of tiptoeing around each other as you're trying to figure out how to share space.
Yes.
But I want to thank you because you're doing wonderful things for the children of Maynard, and I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I would, again, I don't have the experience you have of actually doing it, but I do have the experience of bringing it to a district, observing it, watching how it improves instruction, watching how students, their test scores jump. I see the benefits of it, so it's so exciting to have the two of you right away, feeling comfortable and developing it. And it is so obvious. When you walk into a room and you see co-teaching work, it's truly co-teaching. So thank you. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you like about being in this classroom and having 2 teachers?
That you can teach 2 separate groups at the same time within one.
Great. Can you tell us what you like about being in this class?
Because people go up at the board at the same time.
Can you tell us what you like about being in this class?
That it's better having 2 teachers because then all the kids would be over one teacher and the teacher would get stressed. And it's better having 2 teachers than 1.
Said, and the teacher gets stressed.
She's wise beyond her years.
She is. Yep.
But no, I mean, I don't know if the kids even realize that they're in a co-taught classroom. I think that they're just used to kind of like this is what they know and it's all they know. But when I was asking them, like, do you realize you have 2 teachers? And some of them are like, well, I had 2 teachers before. I'm like, well, that's a little different because we both teach you different things. So then they started to get what we were saying. So it's fun.
And I would also say kudos to the whole staff at Green Meadow because we've been having the conversation about co-teaching. They wanted to explore it. They actually went out to other school districts and explored it years ago, even before I got here.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't until we had a school committee that's so supportive that we were able to actually make it happen. So kudos to the teachers, but kudos to the school committee who made it happen.
Yeah, well,
It's
thank
really
you.
special.
We're really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing to be able to combine forces to get the students what they need when they need it.
Yes. It feels really rewarding.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, and also to the parents who took the risk, because
Yeah.
it's tricky for to jump into something new for them.
That's different.
So all around, it's a huge success.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We had them in, a handful of parents came in for an autumn harvest party that we had on Tuesday. And, they were just like, wow, how do you do this? This was great. They transitioned so well. And, so it was just nice for them to be in the classroom and actually see, how our day looks a little bit and what their kids look like in the room. So it's good.
Great. Thank you.
Are we done? Can I ask one more question?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Sure.
Mary likes to ask questions.
They have more presents.
We do have more about the program piece, but we wanted to lead off with the teachers because they obviously.
Okay, so I'll be specific with them. One of the things that I've heard a couple of times is that we seem to be jumping a little bit into initiatives, which I'm all about, by the way, because there's no such time as today for our kids, every day that they lose. Do you feel like you're getting enough support for the
You know, I
program?
think that workshop that we went to at the beginning of the year was really helpful, but I really think, just if you work well with somebody, it's going to work. I mean, we worked, like I said, closely last year, so it wasn't that big of a switch for us just to be in the same room. So I think having that relationship and having that foundation is really what you need to have it be successful.
And we did go last year, we went to Westboro Public Schools, and we looked to see
That's right.
what it looked like for them. And, there they just had a half-day model. But it's just been interesting to talk to different people and see different classrooms and what they look like, because it kind of helped, mold what it was going to look like for us. And, like Lisa said, we're still trying different things, but, that's been helpful. And I always think anytime you get to go see other classrooms and how, how they're doing it and what it looks like, I always think that's beneficial. So would definitely be, interested, I think, in doing that some more too.
I was impressed that you don't just lock into one model, like you're doing
Yes.
different
Yep.
models. 'Cause,
Yep.
I could see you getting, having people get pigeonholed, sort of like this is the one model, but I give you credit for really, taking advantage of, other than the two extremes.
Yes, we've been using all three pretty frequently.
Yeah. And I was amazed at how many other school systems have been doing this for years.
So was
Which
I.
really it speaks well for.
We even went to that conference and there was, a group there doing a refresher, just because they were talking about, inclusion being a model, right?
Yes.
And co-teaching just having kind of its own realm, and, inclusion isn't necessarily co-teaching, and just how it looks for different people.
Yeah.
And it really does add to the continuum of services that we provide both special education students and general ed students, so it's really a wonderful model.
And then to cut down on transitions, which is another bonus for both students, and special educator and teacher,
So just to know, I had, at the end of the parent forum, a parent did come up just to make sure, pulled me aside to make sure I knew how great their child was feeling in the co-teaching classroom.
Oh, great.
Feeling it was going really well. And then I was also wondering, I'm trying to speak, get towards my, also, because I just remember the make sure, woo, thank you everybody. Thank you, okay, I'm upset now. I just want to make sure that, I remember the people at home thing, I just want to make sure. And then the other thing was just, do you have anything at this point, it sounds like you've been really honing in on, for you and for this particular class and for the two of you, how you're collecting data and using that, but do you have any sense, either what kind of data has been the most meaningful, and or what you've, any anecdotally kind of some changes that, or anything that you've seen just so far in how this model is going that might prove
Just
different?
speaking from a special educator, I like that I get to see the kids all day, every day. And just really see where those skills are and what needs to be, worked on more. That's still beneficial for me, just being, usually only seeing them for maybe possibly 45 minutes a day.
Right.
So I just really have to say that's the best thing for me, that I get to see and make sure that the tools that we're using, they're using them all day, throughout their day. Skills
There's
are being.
continuity
Yes,
there.
generalization, maintenance, yes. So that's one of the greatest things I can say about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'd have to agree with that too, and just, every little thing that Lisa might do, whether it's highlighting, on a paper so that they know where to put their words, just for me to be able to do that too, is really beneficial. And then, in terms of taking data, it's happening all different times, and, like I said, sometimes it's on the fly, and other times it's more formalized. But it's just been helpful to have that, because there have been several instances where, we did something and we're like, okay, these friends are not getting this middle vowel sound, so, okay, then Lisa takes a group and does middle vowel, or sometimes she'll work on something else and I'll take the group and do middle vowel. So I think that's the other thing, is that just because she's a special educator doesn't necessarily mean that she's only working with that group of students. We're just making sure that, they can be working with me as well. I would say probably they're with you, what, 60% of the time or something, or 70% of the time, and with me the other 30 or 40, but it just depends. But just making sure that they know that we're both, there to help and support them, and since we know what their needs are together, then we can.
And you're observing each other with them as well, so
Yes.
that also helps with the continuity. Like you're saying, you see her highlight, so you see it right there, as opposed to just
Right.
being told about it. You
Right,
really see
like I'll
it.
notice a tool that she's using and I'll put it in, with my group
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other really cool thing is when you watch it happening, we know that, nobody learns the same, right? So some people might have one example on how to solve a problem, other people might have another example. So
Yeah.
when they're co-presenting, right, now they're providing
Yeah.
double the examples that are more powerful for kids to see. Oh, I may not have gotten it this way, but now I'm getting it that way.
Yes.
And so it's like a double whammy of instruction. It's amazing.
And that's the thing too, if we're both up there presenting, one time we're like, okay, we need a 10 frame, or then I got something else, I'm like, okay, let's use this and let's use that, and it's good because we can kind of just grab something else. If we can, while somebody's talking, you can just tell who's understanding it and who's not, who
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah, so we're often reading our audience and seeing what they need.
Very cool. Thank you.
I just love the enthusiasm. Thank you so much. The passion, you can tell you guys are, just really loving it. So thank you so much.
You do.
You're
Thank you.
welcome to come see us in
Yeah.
action anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we really have to thank Lisa and Jen. I emailed all four of our co-teachers, Carol and I did, asking for some feedback in preparation to get some comments, and both of them said, "Can we come?" And I was like, "Of course you can." So thank you so much for coming, and the passion that they're bringing forward. And Debbie Hobbs and Tammy Peralta both echoed the same sort of words that they had said as well, but had other arrangements that they had to make for tonight. So we wanted to give you a sense of what the co-teaching was for the folks who were living it, because I know there were some questions. But then we also had questions about how are we evaluating it? And this is really something that the district is really emphasizing as a continuous improvement cycle, that every program that we're putting in place, we're collecting data and using data to inform our decision-making. And there was a question about how we were doing that. So we're using the common assessments that they have referenced. Obviously, for the students who are on individual education plans, they have data points that the teacher has to collect, but we are also looking at our normed assessments, looking at the DIBELS, the DRA, looking at the symphony math and the reflex math. For the fourth graders, we're also looking at the STAR assessment. And those are all assessments that are given 3 times a year. So we've just finished the fall benchmark. So we'll have that as our baseline and then be able to reevaluate in the winter to see where all of the students are, but then also where this particular cohort of students fall. Every year, and we're getting back into this tradition of giving out a parent satisfaction survey, which was sent out last year. The plans are to use that same survey so we can track the data across multiple years, and we will hopefully be able to disaggregate that survey by folks who are in this particular model amongst other models so that we can make changes and improvements in that capacity. And then we are very much using teacher feedback. What is working, what is not working, what do you need? Going to the conferences was one component, going back out to visit and observe schools. There were plans to get the 4 of them together, which hopefully we'll be able to do again shortly, in short order, to talk about the things that they're doing in that capacity. So those are all pieces that we bring back to the table that Carol and I are constantly talking about in terms of how can we make sure that we're implementing this in an effective way. And I will say both teams, in conversations we've had with them, have really championed one, that this is hard, and 2, that it's worth it because they see changes for kids. And that's just, Dr. Girardi talked about watching the student learn a very fundamental skill and how empowering that can be, and that's what our educators are doing every day. And Tammy Peralta actually told me a story about rounding in math and how the kids came in and they had a hard time with it, and she and Debbie worked on different strategies, and they, essentially giving the kids the message, this is hard, you can do it, and we're not giving up on you, and continuing to give them alternative strategies, and the pride with which she spoke about these students and the work that they had put forward. That's everything that we live for as administrators, is to give our teachers the opportunity to do that work for our students. So that's the program evaluation.
I had one more thought, if you don't mind me interrupting. What's really powerful here is we see a co-teaching model with a general ed teacher and a special educator. We see a co-administrative presentation with somebody who represents curriculum in general and somebody who represents the special ed. And I didn't, in my updates, like I said, so much has happened this week. One of the things that happened that I just want kudos to all of you up there, right, and our staff. And I see some other staff who are amazing in our district. But Michelle Resendiz, who's a member of the Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials, they were trying to bring together school teams of superintendent, assistant superintendent for curriculum, director of student services, and this business director, so that we could work together in the budgeting sense, and it would help the business administrator to understand everybody's perspective. Michelle Resendiz was the only person who got all four of us in the same room, because you know her personality. And it was a very powerful, I will forward you the presentation that we saw, because the model that they were suggesting that we follow, we are doing every single piece for general ed students and special ed students. And since the two of these central office administrators have come in the past, there wasn't that coordination where all teachers got the same professional development. But now all teachers get the same professional development, special educators, general educators. It's a real unified system. So I just thank you for the presentation. And it just moved me and reminded me, Michelle got us all into one place to learn about that, how we should be doing it that way.
Absolutely.
All right, so back on track.
Sorry.
It's all right. Your excitement is contagious.
So the other questions sort of come about in terms of moving forward. So as with any initiative, we know that, we put plans in place and then they change because things happen. We obviously saw an example of that recently. And so we have successfully interviewed today. The team successfully interviewed for that position and are very excited about the potential candidate that we have coming in. I won't mention her name because she may or may not have told her employer. But she's coming in for a demo lesson this week, and hopefully or next week, hopefully we can finalize that sooner rather than later. So, we know we have these plans in place, but we also know that we have to be flexible, as our teachers alluded to with the way things are going. So our plan right now is to, next year, move forward with a co-taught model in grade 2. We already have the 2 teachers identified. They had been on board from last year, but really wanted to spend this year working together in the way that Lisa and Jen had talked about working together last year. So they're doing that this year and doing some demoing pieces of that. They are attending professional development. They'll be going to the same conference that these folks went to. They'll be going in December and then continuing conversations throughout the rest of this year. 5th grade is a little bit more complicated. We fully intend to move some form of co-teaching model into that, but because we start teaming in 5th grade, we need to look at different pieces. We very intentionally went with the more expensive model of 1 special educator and 1 classroom general education teacher. It's more expensive because you have to have 2 people serving 1 group of students. As they mentioned, one of the districts we looked at had 1 special educator working with 2 groups of students, but you lose the benefit of the common planning time in some ways. So we very intentionally went with that for the earlier grades because we have team teaching, we have teaming starting in 5th grade to get the students ready to transition between classes in 6th grade. We need to figure out what that looks like. And so we are doing our due diligence and reaching out to area districts that have teaming and seeing how their co-taught model looks different than just having a liaison that represents that grade level. We are working with the 5th grade teachers to discuss what makes sense for them in terms of that support and how we can use our schedule and the best schedule. So that's a work in progress, and we expect to make a decision by the end of January in terms of what we're going to do with that piece moving forward. We're also pursuing, as we had talked about, an external coach. The presenter from the
October conference that the folks went to. Both teams came back incredibly excited about this person, so we've reached out to her to see if she can come in, and then we also just got another contact of someone else who can come in, because next year we'll have a significant cohort of co-teachers, so to be able to bring a coach in to observe multiple classrooms and provide feedback, we'll be able to do that piece. We'll continue to emphasize vertical co-teaching team meetings so that they can talk about what's working and what's not working, and how to get better, and then continue to explore outside professional development through the associations and then also through observation. Looking forward to 2020, we anticipate that we will move this model forward into third grade. We will be looking over the course of the next year and a half to identify that team, so that way in the fall of 2019 that team can begin the process that these folks will have undergone. And then again, continued professional development in all the ways we had talked about previously. And then, so that's sort of our next 2-year component. Carol and I feel pretty strongly that this is going to be something that will allow us to provide, as Dr. Girardi said, a continuum of services for students that will allow us to be more nimble in providing supports for students, both who are already identified as needing specialized services, but then also for some students who it's just not working within their spaces and trying to figure out some different things that work for them. So we're very confident that this is going to be a benefit, and I think it already is for at least 2 grade levels. So, any questions?
So the group of kids that you have, will that same group go to the next? So
Not necessarily. No. So we'll use the same scheduling process that we use every year. It's a different model than like the immersion where the cohort travels together. Essentially, as the teachers do every year, they will look at the group of students, they will look at strengths, they will look at challenges, both academically and behaviorally, and determine what makes the most sense for that group of students at that point.
So the goal is by 2021 that we'll have one of each one of these classes up through grade 5 in some form, another in grade 5, and that's the way it will continue, is just one per grade level?
So I've been in districts, or I've heard of districts that do this for all of their classes, that every grade or every class at the elementary level is a co-taught class. Which I think is amazing and a great model. It's obviously incredibly expensive. We were talking last year about, or 2 years ago, I think they did a study, the school committee did a study on increasing teacher FTEs so that we could have smaller class sizes to the tune of $400,000 or some piece of it. If we're gonna spend $400,000, I would suggest we do this. Because I think there's a huge benefit for it. So I think it's worth a conversation. We felt like let's put it in place for one group at a time, and then make a decision as we move forward.
Is there any conversation about possibly having classes where some of the other teachers might be able to go in and just watch, observe?
Yeah, absolutely. That was always the intention. We obviously wanted to give the teams time to get comfortable in their own skins and do some of that work. But that is absolutely the intention, is to go in and to be able to see. Again, the second grade team, that was one of the reasons they really wanted to hold off for this year, because they wanted to be able to go in and observe and do some of that work. And huge thank you to our 4 teachers who took this on as an initiative for the first piece. And I could not be more proud of the work that you're doing.
2 questions related about parents. So you're thinking that you do the parent survey, speaking of being a parent.
Just thought she might want to attend to her, just in case she had it.
Let me see if I can step in. What was your question?
That's kind of like the co-presenting model.
Yeah.
So
We tag team really well.
So you're thinking that you'd get the parent feedback from the parent surveys that get circulated. You can pull out the those receiving different types of models, or would you do something in addition to that to try to understand how it's going for parents?
How are we going to survey parents? Are we going to survey just the parents in the co-taught classes?
No, so the intention was to use the same survey that we use at the end of every
Do
year.
you think that will drill down enough to what you need?
I mean, we'll take a look at it, but I do think so. The survey that we used last year that was created by the Green Meadow it's not the parent advisory group, parent council, school council, thank you. I think gave us a lot of really good data. We used it in all 3 buildings. And so I do think so. We'll take a look and see if we need to add a question or 2, but I do think it gives us the data that we need.
And I know you mentioned this before, but I'm not remembering how it was as far as, so you assess and next year you put a group of kids together. Do parents have a choice? Do they have a say or discussion about that? But I think you said it's kind of like any other classroom.
It's like any other class.
They try, you're in there and then you
Right.
work with that from there.
Right, because differently than the immersion is a specific educational model where you're learning in Spanish. This isn't a different setting. It's the same setting,
Yeah.
it's just we have supports being offered in different ways, so for the same way that parents don't get to choose whether they want their student in a classroom with a paraprofessional who's supporting students with need, it's just a different model of providing
Right.
support.
Right, okay, very good. Thank you.
I said my piece, so thank you.
Sure.
I really appreciate the updates. And again, to both of you, thank you. And to the 4th grade team, please relay
I will
our
pass that on.
appreciation and our gratitude.
Absolutely,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you.
Shifting gears.
Thanks for presenting.
Yeah, thank you so much. Carol, can we talk about the sub-separate and the language-based classroom, please?
Sure. So a little bit of an update, and just to reiterate some of the things that I've shared before. So the students in the language-based classroom will have a disability that's a language-based learning disability, but they also have to have average to above average cognitive abilities. So that's a definite criteria. Students also would not be presenting with any significant behavioral or emotional concerns. Their primary disability is going to be a specific learning disability, whether or not they come along with an outside diagnosis of dyslexia. Or now with the new dyslexia law, we as educators can come up with that. And also a component to this program is we have Mary Finnegan, our speech and language therapist that services Fowler in the high school. She's going into the classroom once a week. She's also certified OG. She's certified, how many levels? She says 2 years of training already. I don't know if they go by level 1, level 2, like Wilson does. But she's going in. Currently, she's working once a week with some students, providing them with a specific program that brings comprehension to a more visual level. So I've always felt that with a language-based program, a speech and language therapist is very important. What's really nice is that our speech and language therapist and the classroom teacher, Linda Muldoon, already know each other. They met going through the Orton Gillingham. We've also, the two of them just went Thursday and Friday to the International Dyslexia Conference, because it was local, it wasn't on the other coast. Another important component or an important person to this program is I've hired a neuropsychologist to consult with us. Her name is Dr. Roberta Green. And she's been working with the teacher and myself since midsummer, helping us determine, what type of student is a good candidate with her neuropsych background. She knows how to look at all that testing, and she's able to help us say, this student has a specific deficit because of this score and that score. So this is, when you're teaching, you want to make sure you target this. A student might have, because of testing, she can see that a student has weak auditory reasoning skills, and she'll help provide the teacher with some strategies. We're very fortunate with the teacher we have. She's a certified SPED teacher, but she's also a certified reading specialist. She has Wilson certification, she has OG certification, she's done RAVO, she's done Linda Mubel, she's done some Project Read, so she has all that stuff that you really want somebody to come in. So I feel very fortunate. Of course, the students that are recommended for this program would come from the IEP team. I can't dictate it, so that will be something that will be left to the teams. And my other update on, or you have questions?
Do we want to pause here? Any?
Didn't hear the whole.
Yeah, go right, okay.
Because they tie in together, right?
Yes,
They most
they do,
certainly do.
they do. So at the last school committee meeting, you heard from Mrs. Pimenta about the Boston Children's Hospital Harvard Medical School validation study. I'm very excited about it. I think within a couple of days of getting the agreement, I signed the agreement. And I've met with both the kindergarten teachers and the preschool teachers. We were fortunate to be able to have a CPAC representation during that time, and as well as two other teacher representations. We had a conference call this Tuesday with some of the members from the company that is doing the app development, and we had teachers, principal, CPAC participation as well. So we're very excited about that. Teachers are very excited about this. So what we know right now is this is the first year of them validating the study for the app. So this is the first time that they're really going into a lot of districts and seeing if the app is going to do what it's supposed to do. Any of the staff coming from Children's or Harvard will be queried and fingerprinted. They will be providing, we will be providing with them parent information sessions before any consents go out to parents. We brainstorm with them about having a possible school day, during the school day session, for thinking a lot of our preschool parents are, dropping the kids off, maybe not shuffling off to work right away, and they might, having a morning session might be very convenient. And then having an evening session for any of our parents that might be working. So we want to be able to give them that full opportunity. The only students who will be able to participate this year are our monolingual English-speaking students. That maybe at some future point, they might be developing this app for students that are bilingual. But at this point, they're just working on students that are monolingual English speakers. The students will be tested in the winter and the spring. There'll be the testing sort of will be done in 2 different sessions. One session will be the students working with the app. Right now, it's about 45 minutes. They hope to take it down to 20. And then the validators come back and do some more pencil paper, more traditional kinds of testing. Some of the tests that we would normally use in some of our diagnostic tests, such as the CTOPS, the Comprehensive Test of Phonological Processing. And then the district will receive copies of, the parents receive a copy of a score report. It doesn't tell them if they're at risk, but will tell the parent, this is how your child scored on phonemic awareness. This is how your child scored on fluency, but not whether or not the child is at risk. And we have to, I'm hoping that all of our parents will give us permission to receive copies of those reports as well. But that's not a given. And let's see, because the scores, and this is why the researchers can't provide whether or not a student is at risk for a reading issue. Because the scores are obtained for research purposes, they cannot offer interpretation of the scores or diagnoses of any kind. If the parents ask, they can be provided with a resource packet, but only if they ask. We asked if they would send us a copy of the resource packet as well as a blank copy of what the score report would be for the parent, so that if parent asks us any questions, we've already had it, we've had a chance to look at it, we might be able to answer some questions. Today, I had a phone call with the person I'm not sure if she's a project manager. She didn't identify herself as a project manager, but somebody else in the company did. But she's in charge of scheduling and testing with all the districts. They've had a fantastic response for the number of districts that want to participate in this. And their November schedule is full, so their fall scheduling is full. We won't be able to make that fall session, but we can make the January, February timeframe. So, and they're not sure if they'll be able to do all of our pre-K and K, or if they want to do a combination or one grade. We'll be in touch in a few weeks to be able to figure that out. The process that this group is going through, this is the first time they're going through this process with the students of the districts that they're working with for the fall. So they feel that they're going to be learning a lot about how long does this take? Is it 45 minutes, 40 minutes too much for a 4-year-old to sit? Can they do a few sessions simultaneously in one classroom? One of our teachers said, I really don't feel comfortable with any of my students sitting in a room by themselves with a stranger. We teach stranger danger, so we worked out with them, can we have a teacher sit in the classroom if it happens to be the teacher's classroom, that kind of thing. So we were already thinking about that. What will we receive for participating in this? There'll be professional development sessions to the teachers and other school personnel, focusing on early identification and intervention of language-based learning disabilities. The students would receive a Brain and Science Awareness Day to learn about the brain and related science topics. That's pretty cool. Discussion with the teachers and/or administrators about early screening for reading difficulties. And another nice bonus is that if enough students from each class participate, there's a $250 stipend per class, and the teachers have already decided we want to pool that money into professional development about this topic. So I'm very excited about it. Thank you, Mrs. Pimenta, for bringing this to us. So this is, I just can't say how excited about it I am. I like being part of this, ground level kind of grassroots stuff, so.
Follow-up questions?
Oh, yeah, you might, she's more of an expert on some of the details than I am.
You're going through, and I was trying to think of our meeting this week. Just a few things. Even if the app doesn't work, right, the validation process falls through, because they're doing the paper and pencil, the families still get the benefit of knowing where their children are at. So it's not going to be a waste of time for the children and the families at all. Also, the kids in the Spanish immersion classroom in kindergarten are also included in this if they're monolingual.
Yep.
Okay, which is great because it's harder to identify kids who are in the Spanish immersion program, right? Even though this is the first time that the GAB lab is coming to schools, they've been screening kids for quite some time in their lab. So the school setting is different, but these are experts who have been screening kids and are used to this. So I just want to make sure that we mention that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And in addition, when the parents receive the reports that identify whether they're below average or above average, they do get the resources packet, and we're going to get it too. So
yes, so that we know, yeah.
So we can give it to them. But what is more important for me as a parent of a dyslexic child is the connection, right? And they are going to have the opportunity to talk to the researchers about their children. And in addition to that, children who are in the extreme low average in several areas the parents will have access to Nadine Gab herself, and she'll sit with the parent and really guide the parent through it. So I feel that all around, not only are we testing and identifying, but we're also providing the supports that families need.
And that was part of the reason why I really wanted to be able to have those reports, those scores. I don't want to wait for for next year or for, for the referral. I want to be able to see it, look at it, for us to talk about as a team, do we want to just refer, those kids that really look like they're at risk, even though the report doesn't say that? I don't want to wait for that. I mean, this is, I've said this to Danielle, I've said it to other staff. I want us to catch these kids early, and I want to hit them hard. So when they get to third grade, we're not just identifying them.
So,
Early intervention.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So earlier, you said that part of the process is a parent information session.
Yes,
So that the families are aware of what they're opting their children into.
yes.
Do you anticipate at one of those sessions having some sort of a release ahead of time?
Yes.
So that
Yeah, in
there's
case
no
they wanted
lag
to sign
time
it
and
right
we're not
there.
chasing score reports? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other follow-up questions?
The long-term goal for everyone at the state level, is it to create sort of like an MCAS kind of thing for early intervention? What is their long-term goal? To incorporate it?
I don't know
They
if you
wanna
can
monetize
talk
it.
about it in the state level. I did have an opportunity to be at a session with Russell on Monday, the state director of special education, and he just said to us to expect something in December.
I can speak to that because, he loves me. So the law says that DASI now, it's on DASI's court, right? They have to give us the guidelines of what we should be doing at schools across the state. It's not MCAS in the sense that you pass or you fail. It's these assessments identify very specific skills, right? And most of the skills, with good instruction, the kids get it. It's about 20% of the kids that need intensive intervention in order to learn these specific skills. So what this screening does is really identify these different skills and where the child is at, so the teachers can target those areas with evidence-based intervention. So it's not pass or fail, it's really identifying the needs of the child and meeting them.
So eventually, every pre-K and/or kindergarten student will be assessed to
Yes.
decide whether or not they have any learning disability in this area.
It's specific, like
Reading.
a
Reading.
language-based
Right,
kind of disability, yes. It will be the reading, thank you.
Yeah. The reality is, before this law, that if you look at when kids get put into IEPs, it's third grade, and then it doubles again the following year, right? And if you look at the IEPs, it's going to be specific learning disability. In other words, it's really reading disabilities, language-based disabilities. And we know that we can find them earlier when intervention is most effective.
And that's what the research
And
says.
that's what the research says for decades, right? So now it's finally DASI realizing that they need to put guidelines and ask us to do this earlier so we can catch the kids early and give the intervention when it works the best. So these kids can have a better time and there are no social emotional consequences of not
Yes,
being
yes.
identified early.
Right, right. The science, since I became a teacher, which was far too many years ago, has really, it's amazing when I think about what I knew about a reading disability or a dyslexia when I was first teaching to now. I mean, it's so much more, it's so much easier for us to know who has that and what we need to know, or what we need to look at,
And how to intervene.
Yes, and how to intervene, and whether or not is it is it a phonemic awareness issue? Is it an auditory issue? Jump in at any point. Is it a fluency issue? There's numbers of different kinds of issues within dyslexia. So now the tests are so good, and we know so much more. We can tell even in pre-K. It's just amazing to me how much the science has come along.
Yeah, I would say too, being a veteran, the science of reading instruction has come so far, and it's so important because reading's the foundation of all learning. If you think about every other content area, You have to be able to read the word problem to do math. You have to be able to read the lab in order to do science. Reading is the foundation of all learning, and we have to address this.
General question, are teacher colleges incorporating this into their learning?
I don't know. You know, I was talking to, I don't know who I was talking to, somebody in the past week, that I know, it was somebody from the MASBO, from Assabet Valley, how we really need, we were talking about teacher preparation, and anytime I get a chance and time to talk to a new graduate, whether they're general ed or special ed, I quiz them about, so what was your bachelor's about? You know, and I don't think they're getting anything much more different than I did so many moons ago. It's, you know, and so this person I was speaking to, it was like, okay, who do we have to go to? Do we have, maybe you have to go to the state level at the, you know, to somebody that really has control about what colleges provide for curriculum. I don't think our teachers, even our special ed teachers, are coming out with the stuff they need. We know so much.
I would agree with that. And this is really the next battle, right? This is the result of the law. Now that we have this law, you know, identifying kids, and we need to give intervention, I'm hoping that it's going to be the automatic next step where teaching schools are really looking at this. With that said, MTEL, the test that teachers have to pass, already has teachers to know what phonemic awareness is. So the skills are there, it's not that far. We're just not focusing on the best way to teach children how to read. So that needs to be a shift from whole word reading to really looking at the phonemic awareness and other pieces of reading.
Comprehensive strategies. That's that science that has come along. People wanted to say it was just phonics or it's just whole language. No, it's comprehensive.
Right.
And you have to figure out what helps students individually, what part of that they need. So
And
it's
now you
really a
have the
comprehensive
assessments to
strategy.
do that.
And now we have the
Right, we
assessments
know
to do that.
so much now, so much. And our teachers coming out, whether it's gen ed or, I feel very strong about teachers coming out of special ed, you know, with the bachelor's, they might not even know how to test and write a report. Oh, come on.
That's why we need very strong administrators and teaching teams in the schools.
We
so
should
they can
invite
help,
student
you know?
teachers in too to observe what we're
Yes.
on the cusp of cutting edge of being able to
Yep,
provide.
yep. So I do feel very fortunate to have Mrs. Pimenta, this is sincere, on board with this. I really do. That it's, I know football might be, but I really, you know, it's nice to have a real community partner to really help look at what we're doing and, you know, push forward so that we can improve what we provide for students.
Thank you for championing it. Carol, thank you for jumping on board.
Thank you.
Because I think I speak for the board when we say that our intent is always to help every student. And this is going to help truly every student. So thank you. Really
Thank
appreciate
you for being on board, and really, it's a community,
It is.
you know, initiative, and I can't say enough about the teachers at Green Meadow who have been in these meetings, who have been reading the dozens of emails, you know, and paperwork that is going through. So I really, really appreciate not only the school committee, the superintendent, Carol, but especially the teachers who have made this possible and asked all these great questions that I had not thought about as I was thinking about this.
I know we're looking at a January, February timeline, but please thank the pre-K and the kindergarten teachers in advance for us.
I will. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, shifting gears, time to get into some nuts and bolts. Next up on the agenda is School Committee Policy Number 202.
Justin.
Okay. I mean, sure. They need to keep it off topic.
You want to come up next?
You have to come up to the microphone.
So they can hear you over on TV.
And also, introduce yourself for the people that'll be watching at home at some point.
Okay. No pressure.
And do a little dance, too. No.
Okay. I'm Nancy McNeil, and I'm a parent of a dyslexic son, and that's in 4th grade, and I'd like to know more about the sub-separate classroom, and when it's going to be up and running, and how many kids you expect to be in it.
Well, the classroom's up and running. It's not sub-separate yet. It wouldn't have been right for me to call families and say, I think your child's a good candidate, I want to put them in there full-time. That would have been inappropriate of me. So it's, it's 2 months into the school year. And the students that are in there, their IEPs have, the same services that they came with. The particular teacher that is teaching them their pull-out ELA or math is, instead of it being the 4th grade liaison or the 5th grade liaison, it's our language-based teacher. So as the teams meet, or any person on the team feel that this student is really making some really nice progress, or is struggling in some of the inclusion classes that they're in because of their language disability, then the team would reconvene and then make that decision if the student needs to go into this separate setting more. It's how many students. I would probably top it off based on regulations at 8. Right now, there are students in there from 4 to 7, 4 to 7th grade.
Wayne Palmer. I was one of the original Chapter 766 kids, so I'm very grateful to see this come changing. But with dyslexia, you also have mirror vision. And how are you going to be able to identify that to flip it around? Back then, they didn't try.
Right.
I had somebody that stepped out of the box, and when I would write it, they would hold it up to a mirror and show me the different way to write it.
Mm-hmm. I have heard a little bit about that, not too recently. I haven't heard any updated research on that. So that would be something that I would have to look into.
Okay, because the other thing is, can't do it as a multiplication, but I can do it as division. So being able to flip it for these students back and forth is going to be, if you can't read, you can't spell.
Right.
I can read 7 books, not write a paper and tell you everything in there.
Right.
Don't make me write it.
Right. And there are some people that have dyslexia, that have their doctorates. They can write really well, but they always need somebody besides the computer to do the spell check,
So that was a question, because having mirror vision is a big rock to overcome.
Right.
It really is.
Yep.
Because now you have to deal with right and left brain. So that's why I'm asking.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Thank you very much.
Carol, could you clarify, so are you talking about for next year, there will be potentially a different model once as you've been able to?
It might begin to evolve this year.
Yeah, okay, very good.
So that's what it might happen. I can't predict. I think we do have some students that could definitely benefit from that, but that's going to need to be the IEP team's determination.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
All right, how are you?
Hi, I'm Sandra Scully. I have a 6th grader who's also dyslexic. He's not in the Maynard schools. He's at Carroll School this year for the first year. I just had some questions regarding when he comes back to Maynard, which would be in probably 2 or 3 years. He wasn't identified in Maynard as being dyslexic. He was identified by a private neuropsychological analysis. What do you have in store for a sub-classroom or some kind of a system for when kids come, in 7th or 8th or 9th grade, or for the high school class, if and when he does need support when he comes back? And also, I had a question about kids that aren't in this district. How many do you plan to have in the classroom that is currently going to serve 4th through 6th? I thought it was 4th through 6th.
from out of district? Is that what you're saying? I don't know. Oh, I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't think I have enough information or to be able to answer that. You know, maybe you know something more than I do as far as other districts perhaps sending referrals to us or not.
I thought there would be kids coming from outside of Maynard to this sub-separate classroom also.
You know, we always, as special ed directors, there are times that we'll find out a neighboring district or two districts over has a specialized program. You know, we always talk about tuitioning in. We do some of that right now for some of our 18 to 22-year-olds because our program got too small. And we needed to provide them with a different, a bigger pool of social experiences. But I don't know if it's students coming from other districts.
And as far as the high school for students who have dyslexia or who still need supports at that time?
We still have supports up there.
What kind of supports?
Well, we have the similar types of pull-out kind of sessions. We do have more co-teaching up there. You know, we have at least two teachers that are going into academic subjects and co-teaching. I think there is some science co-teaching, some social studies co-teaching, but it would really depend when your son comes back where his needs are at that point. You know, maybe his reading comes up high enough. It really depends on where the student is at that point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hi, I'm Jennifer O'Leary. I'm Chair of the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, also called the CPAC. And I think part of what Sandra's question is getting at is we, through the children's study, as well as through the passing of the new law where we're going to be screening, we're going to be identifying a whole lot more kids with dyslexia than we have in the past. And so are we working on a plan for how we're going to be addressing those students' needs? Do we have any thoughts about that yet? And then the other question I had was as far as the language-based classroom, so there's a specific criteria that's been identified for students who have a certain cognitive level, who have the language-based disability, and not severe behavioral issues. But what about, how are the needs being met for students who don't fit that criteria? How are they currently being met, or how are they going to be met in the future?
Students that generally, in order to get diagnosed with dyslexia, one of the criteria is that you have average to above average cognitive ability. That's one of the set criteria that's been known for a while. So a student might be struggling with reading, but it might be for a very different reason that, you know, has, it might be for reasons that the student doesn't have as much cognitive ability. So one of the criteria for dyslexia is average to above average. That's why, you know, that's one of our criteria. Anybody that has a language-based program, that's one of the criteria. Even at the Carroll School, that's one of their criteria. So that would be, you know, one of those. So other students with reading issues are going to be serviced in the same way that they have been. We haven't been ignoring our students with reading issues. In fact, I just saw an IEP today that the student was picked up last year for a reading issue, started at way below level on the DRA, and from last year, early last year to now, the student has caught up with their reading and is on grade level. That student is not dyslexic. They're not going to catch up that fast without the real specialized instruction like the Wilson or the OG.
Okay. The other question that I had is, so the way I understood it is that Dr. Green, the consultant, is trying to identify students who may be a good fit for the classroom. And how are the IEP teams of those students becoming involved as far as having the sub-separate classroom be their placement, because placement always comes last in the process after needs and services have been identified. So I'm wondering how that process, from soup to nuts, is working.
Right now, her classroom, the students in that classroom are, if we didn't have that class, those students would be in with their grade level liaison. So instead of putting them with their grade level liaison, we've put them with this classroom teacher. So if the team reconvenes and wants to look at a student that's already in there or another student, I would want to have the team come together, review their data, determine maybe if there's new testing that needs to be updated, and for the team to make the decision. If Bert Green can be part of that team to be able to bring her expertise to the team, that would be wonderful.
Okay. So it sounds like that it's not, at this point in time, an actual sub-separate classroom, but pull-out services? Is that accurate?
But one thing that you can also look at is when you look at a placement page, I think it's the third one down, you have full inclusion, partial inclusion, and sub-separate. Sub-separate is a pull-out 60% or more. So maybe some of those students are really by definition under sub-separate or very close to it.
Okay.
I don't think that's exactly what I'm talking about when I say I want this to be sub-separate. I really would like it to be open to the students that need it for all their content area.
Okay.
But the students would go with their grade level to lunch and specials.
Okay. And then I just had one question about the dyslexia study that Children's is doing when they come in and do the testing. Will any Maynard staff be involved in the testing?
No, they do all of it.
And will any of Maynard's consultants, like Dr. Green, be involved in any of the
No.
testing? Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
It has to be all their staff, otherwise we would be invalidating the study.
Okay.
We just wanted our staff to be in a room for especially our pre-K students, just for safety. We're always talking about stranger danger. So we wanted to be able to do that, and they didn't have a problem with it.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. You want another one? Sure. You could come up, you could ask the question. Oh, somebody in the back.
How much prep time does a language-based classroom teacher get?
She gets what's contracted by the union.
Is that the
Union.
same as like all the classroom teachers?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and you mentioned Mary Finnegan comes in. Now, how long does she stay? And it's once a week? And
Yeah, right now it's once a week. It's probably about a 45-minute session.
Okay.
Probably not more than that.
So does she take some of the kids or help out, or what is her role?
I think right now I'm leaving it to them to figure it out. I think that she's there, working on some common lessons.
Okay.
But, if she comes in and takes a small group, although everything's small group in there right now.
Right.
It's to fit a specific need of that small group.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Natasha.
Hi.
Natasha Rivera. I have a couple of kids in Green Meadow and Fowler. So I had a question about the screening for dyslexia that's going to be happening. What do you anticipate services, or is there going to be a resource available like Linda over at Green Meadow? Do you anticipate hiring a staff, OG Wilson, to address the needs of the Green Meadow students that will be identified at next year or this year?
Right. We do have, we have Lisa Boardman, who you saw in the co-teaching. She's Wilson Level 1 certified. We have another teacher there that's Wilson Level 1 certified. I'm working on that. I have looked at the budget for next year, and I'm going to reserve comment on that.
So it would be a nice to have, is what I'm hearing, but, okay. I do have also a follow-up question, and I don't, it's really about the co-teaching model, so I don't know if it'd be best to ask.
Either one of us.
Okay, so what what services are provided from special education in the class?
With the co-teaching?
Yes.
All the special education services are in the class.
So-
You know, if there are some students, because again, we didn't go back to families to say, we want to change your IEP because we've got this cool co-teaching going on. So there are some students that have a little bit of pull-out, but it's not much. So they're still getting their pull-out. But in a true co-teaching, all the services happen there, except for maybe speech, OT, PT. But some speech can even go in. You know, it's something that we have to look at on an individual basis for that.
How many special education kids are approximately in the co-teaching classroom that are on IEPs?
It varies. You know.
Up to what? Like, what is the threshold that we're comfortable with as a district?
The standard is, that other districts use is 50% of the students can be
So it
on
could be up to?
IEPs.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we're below that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely below that.
Are kids with behavioral, are they on this, in this co-teaching model? Or is this mostly?
Well, as Jen said,
I guess I'm trying to wonder how we identify
Yeah.
which
So
kids are
this-
most appropriate to go in the co-teaching model?
So what we look at are the students for whom, if we were to be able to provide services in this co-taught way, that they would be able to achieve differently than if they were in the pull-out. We look at transition. So are there some students with behavioral challenges in the co-taught classrooms? There are. Those were the students, however, that the behavioral challenges the teams felt were, little t teams, teams felt were as a result of hidden academic issues, posturing in order to prevent people knowing that they can't do the math, the reading, et cetera. And I will say in the fourth grade classroom specifically, we have a couple of those students who are doing very, very well.
And have there been times where paras have been needed in the co-teaching models to support the teachers?
In the
Because I
fourth-
know they're both fourth or first grade, just because they're new, and I'm just wondering what kind of additional support unexpected maybe has come up?
In the fourth grade classroom, we did have available paraprofessional staffing within paras assigned to fourth grade teams. In conversation with the fourth grade team, they identified that for math, the extra section of math help, that would be helpful to have 3 stations instead of 2. And because the paraprofessional was not identified as being needed for an IEP service at that time, she was added to that piece.
Okay. And I think I had one more question. The fourth grade co-taught class, so it is still up and running with Ms. Peralta and
She
Ms.
just
Hobbs?
left, so Ms. Hobbs is
Friday
there.
was her last day.
Friday was her last day. What is the plan for transitioning that class or
We have a
support?
paraprofessional who has been assigned. Chris Kitchell is working with the special education liaisons to ensure that all student services requiring a special educator are provided in a setting. And as I mentioned, we interviewed today. We have a woman coming in for a demo lesson next week. And the team, I was not on the team was very positive about that person. We hope to have her in. Until that happens, we will have the paraprofessional in that room full-time, so there will be 2 adults. Again, that paraprofessional will not be providing special education services that are required in IEPs by a special educator. That will be provided by our special educators.
Okay. And my last question is, I know that there was some conversation that there was to better identify the kids in the class before the semester started. How much review of, I guess, because I know that sometimes you don't really know who's going to be in what class, or parents don't really know who's going to be in what class until later on, or in like August. how are teachers planning, I guess, to?
We're going to use the same placement process. The placement is done towards the end of the year. It is a goal of mine as an administrator that we are able to provide updates to parents before that. The release in August is not necessarily because of, we don't know where the vast majority of students are placed. It was a fear that if things happened and people needed to be moved, that parents would, and their child was moved, that parents would be upset about that piece of it. We also had the tradition of posting the class list on the walls and all of those things. So we're moving in terms of those transitions, and we have to be thoughtful of all of the people who are involved in that. But we will continue the placement process, which begins in March, I believe, is when we start talking about
At least
kids.
March, if not earlier.
Yeah, I'm hoping this year earlier, so.
Yeah, I usually like to start just right after February vacation, as far as special ed teams looking at how we want to group our students, what's the best way to group our students into classes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Sure.
Hi, my name is Hillary Griffiths, and my daughter is in the 4th grade co-teaching room. And I'm a big fan of the co-teaching model in general. I've had experience with it in the past, and my child has. I also think the two teachers, Mrs. Peralta and Mrs. Hobbs, have been fantastic. However, at least in my child's case, and I don't have any reason to believe she's an outlier, her IEP is not being followed this year with her being in that classroom. And that bothers me in general, that it's being ignored. I'm also concerned that when I brought up the fact that her IEP is not being followed, I've been told it's impossible to follow her IEP in the co-teaching classroom. And if I would want to have the IEP followed as written, and an enormous amount of work went into creating the IEP as written, she would have to be moved to a different classroom. And that it's not possible to meet the IEP in her current classroom. And I am concerned that there is a classroom in general that IEPs can't be followed in. And then I'm also concerned specifically for my child that her IEP is not being followed. So I just wanted, I know, like you said, you want to meet every child's educational needs. And I know my child's needs are not being met. And so I assume other people's are as well. And because you guys are responsible for all of it, I figured that it would be helpful to share that so that those concerns could be addressed and
So I'd have
acknowledged.
to advise the school committee that individual cases aren't appropriate for you to discuss at a public meeting, but that is something, you're standing right next to the person who you can talk to, who will help you, and she helps all of our parents who have needs. So I would recommend that you set up a meeting, if not with the special ed department chair, with Carol, who's the special ed department chair supervisor, to try and work through those concerns.
So my concerns aren't specifically for my child. I've talked to the special education chair, I've talked to the principal. My concerns are in general, that I don't think the school in general should have a classroom that isn't willing to follow an IEP, because I think that's not really ethically or legally appropriate.
So we would agree with you that that's not ethically or legally appropriate, but we would also ask you not to make statements at a public meeting. That's a process that has to go through the school department administration and yourself. It's not an appropriate place to have this discussion.
I understand that, but if I were on the school committee, I would want to know that this is occurring.
So I can tell you as chair that I'm going to ask you to follow the procedural safeguards notice that you receive and go through the steps, because ultimately we're somewhat powerless.
Okay.
And that's really all I can do in this moment. I'm hearing you. I can feel what you're feeling through your mannerisms and your voice, and this is a deep feeling for you, and I apologize for that. But ultimately, I do have to defer to the professionals in the room and ask you to refer to your procedural safeguards, use your CPAC advisory committee, and just go through the steps if you are feeling the way that you are feeling.
I think that maybe my emotions with regards to my child are clouding things, but the reason what I'm bringing up to you right now is not for assistance with my child. It's that when assessing the co-teaching classroom model in general, I don't know that in general the school system should create a model that's certain children's needs are not allowed to be addressed during, in terms of planning and curriculum decisions.
Thank you. We'll take that under advisement.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions?
Thank you again, Carol.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Okay, let me call up the document here. Now we're switching to school committee policy number 202, organization of administration, first reading.
So the school committee policy subcommittee met on October 17th and reviewed this policy. At that time, I don't believe we found any updates were necessary, but we wanted to bring it to the full committee for review because we did plan on updating the associated administrative regulation, which is our next agenda item. So this is only a first reading, and the full school committee can review it at your leisure. Contact Colleen if there's anything that you think we need to update, because we always have to go through the second reading to actually make it into a reviewed policy. But it's important to update our policies on a regular schedule, so we thought that it made sense while we were updating the administrative regulation.
Okay.
I just have a quick typo.
Sure.
If that's okay?
Absolutely.
The last,
Colleen?
the last line, Colleen, it said, it said the authority of establishing policy remains with the committee and the responsibility of implement policy. I think it's supposed to be implementing policy. That's it. Now I don't have to call her.
Thank you, Mary. Other comments? So we'll put this on the agenda for the 15th for a second reading. At that point, Colleen, would you please change the date approved at the bottom to reflect the 15th for us? And we'll consider this our first reading. Thank you. Moving on, the accompanying administrative regulation that goes with this, please.
So administration regulation number 202.1 is organization of administration, and it's an organizational chart. I did provide a copy of that, or we did. The committee reviewed it again. The school committee policy subcommittee met and reviewed that document. And because we have new job titles, the old organizational chart was outdated and it wasn't aligned to the current administrative model that you have. So we've recommended this new organizational chart. Again, administrative regulations actually don't need to be approved as they're technically administrative protocols, but I always bring them before the school committee for review. And of course, if you have any recommendations, we would welcome them and make the changes as necessary. So if you can think of anything now that you'd like changed, we can do it. Or if you want to email Colleen, she's the keeper of records, and she takes care of all of this for us.
Anything? No. Before we move on a related topic, going back to the parent forum that we had last month, there has been some ongoing discussion amongst members of the community that they're requesting an update on the new administrative model, as well as any data that we're collecting, both formal and informal, as far as the efficacy of it is concerned, especially as it pertains to future planning. So if we could just keep that on the forefront and get that onto a future agenda. I don't think we need to rush it. We need to give it time. We have a new member coming on at Fowler. But if we want to look at that in December or January and report back out to the members of the community so that they feel like they're being heard, but more importantly informed on that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
So just to be aware, Mauro and I are on the subcommittee, so we have already seen these policies, and that is why we don't have any particular comments to make.
Oh, thank you for putting in the work.
And actually, there's a great committee. We are reviewing a lot of policies, and we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but it was a very fruitful meeting. We even had students and teachers there who were giving us advice. It was really good.
I have to say, I wasn't excited to be on policy. But I actually think there's a lot of things that you can do to really kind of consider how to give structure to things that we value and make sure that those are in the policies. So I think that is actually worthwhile.
I did policy my first 3 years, and it's really dry, but you get to know a lot.
When it's concrete and tangible, and you
yes.
can like look at things and like
There's
drill down to like the level of like trying to.
There's influence there too.
Oh, that wasn't really what I was going in for.
But that's
yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, so now we need to nominate Dr. Girardi or a member of the school committee to fill an open seat on the Case Collaborative. Can you tell us more about that, please?
So the collaborative legislation requires the school committee appoint either a board member or a superintendent to the collaboratives. And traditionally, it has been a superintendent because the hours are usually not convenient for school committee members. The Case Collaborative does meet on, in the afternoons from like 12:30 to 3:30. So, you know, I enjoy going to those meetings. As I said, we enjoy hosting the CASE programs here. They are a wonderful partner. For those people who were at graduation last year, part of the CASE Collaborative is very unique in that a lot of collaboratives provide special education programs in their buildings, right? So they become out-of-district placements, so to speak. The CASE Collaborative is very unique because they'll find host schools, and part of the agreement is that the host school has to keep them as if they're their own students. And so when we saw graduation last year, we saw CASE students graduating. It was very moving. Every year that we go to Nature's Classroom, our CASE students from Fowler come along with us because we have classrooms in Fowler and the high school. So it's a great collaborative to be part of. We're providing great programs for our students who access them, but also other students in the collaborative who access them. So I do enjoy representing the school committee there, but I could use one less meeting if anybody wants to go. But I do enjoy going. So if you want to nominate me to be the board representative, I'd be happy to.
Well, let's first look around. Okay. I think Mary spoke what was on everyone's mind.
Yeah, I just don't feel like that hasn't been working, and it's good for you to be engaged with that. I feel like we've been able to look at.
All right, so I'll make a motion to nominate Dr. Girardi to fill the chair, or excuse me, fill this seat as the representative to the Assabet Valley, or excuse me, the Concord Area Special Education Collaborative, otherwise known as CASE.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Okay, Dr. Girardi, let's talk about the AVC. Oh, no, wait, we need to do Assabet Valley Collaborative Board appointment.
Correct. So very similar to the last discussion, we are members of two collaboratives because we really do try to provide a continuum of services. We've been very focused on providing the best services we possibly can. When we're looking at out-of-district placements, we look at all institutions, and that's part of the reason why when I came here, you were already members of two collaboratives, and I believe in them, so we've been members ever since. So this is a second collaborative that we need to have a board member on. And by the way, there's penalties if you don't go to the meetings, so I think one of them is they get to call you and tell you if I'm not coming to the meetings.
Okay.
But I know that in the next agenda item where you have a report, there's actually some data about being a board member. You also have to pass one of the DESE certifications to be a board member, so I forgot to mention that, which I have done. So I'm certainly eligible to be your board representative, and again, I do enjoy Assabet Valley Collaborative is a very well-run collaborative. We have students who are in their programs. They also do professional development, and they've done our professional development on cultural proficiency. They provide so much for our staff and our students that I would be happy to be your board member.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to have Dr. Girardi be our representative of the ABC.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 4-0.
I just had one general question. Does Carol ever go with you to these meetings, or she'd be instrumental too?
Yeah, no, Assabet Valley Collaborative and CASE, not only do they have as a board, so what's interesting is, as a board member, I actually kind of do what you do. I get the executive director runs policies by us. You know, all these decisions that you make, that's what I'm doing on behalf of you. But they also do what they call work-alikes. And so the executive director of CASE and Assabet Valley invites all the special ed directors together in the region so that they can talk about their concerns. And that's why, like Carol knows, you know, maybe some districts in our group have, you know, similar programs or don't have similar programs because they do talk together. So they actually do provide significant professional development for the different groups. And there are times kind of like that MASBO meeting where we all get together because they say this, everybody needs to pay attention to this. So it really is great professional development.
That's great.
Excellent. Well, thank you for stepping forward and filling those 2 seats for us, Dr. Girardi. Let's talk about the Assabet Valley Collaborative quarterly report.
So that new legislation is probably not so new anymore. I think it's a couple of years old, but it was legislation to really quantify what collaboratives do and how they do it. And yet it was very restrictive because at one time there were some problems with some collaboratives, not the ones that we're part of, but collaboratives that were a little closer to New Hampshire, as far as some fiscal responsibilities and some of the management that had taken place in the past. So the legislation restricted a lot of the what collaboratives can do and how they do it. So I did forward you that document, and there's a lot of links that you can look at that tell you about what they're doing, but also at the same time, the collaboratives are now trying to work on legislative amendments through their, they have an association, I think it's called MOEC, and their association are proponents of things that will help the collaboratives do better work. So you'll notice one of the first items is they're going to seek legislative updates and amendments to HB 2867 and SB 2330 to improve Chapter 43 of the Acts of 2012, to remove DESE appointment to the board. So when I go to those board meetings, there's actually a DESE member who, because of the legislation, they're kind of overseeing things to make sure collaboratives are doing things right. And quite frankly, they have a lot to do with DESE, so we're saying, the oversight might not be needed anymore. And then one of the things that they really would like to see happen is to enable collaboratives to provide services for adults beyond the age of 22. So right now, they can only do pre-K to 22, but there's a need for students who graduate out of special education programs beyond 22, and they feel like they're perfectly situated because some of their students are in their programs until they're 22, that maybe they can actually provide more services. So those are the amendments they're making, are trying to pass. And so it's nice to see them be proactive and try to provide even better services as a collaborative. And then there's some updates. One of the things I think I brought back to you, and we have to vote on amended agreements. There's an agreement that we vote on that we agree to be a member. So far in the last 4 years, I think I brought it back to you twice because several years ago, what community was it? We added a community that wanted to be part of the collaborative, and then the most recent one is Auburn.
Yep.
So I think we started off with 11 districts when I started with this collaborative, and I think we're up to 13 or something like that, which goes to show you the strength of that collaborative, how well run it is, and that other communities are desiring to be part of it. So that's pretty exciting news too as part of their quarterly report. And then I'll let you read at your leisure. There's a lot of the program descriptions of the things they offer for individual students that are pretty amazing. And if you ever do want to go visit them and visit their program, I'd love to go with you because it's pretty amazing. Again, it's really amazing what educators do for kids, and it's really great to see, programs like this that do that. So I think that's a good summary of what the document that you got.
Yep.
And if you feel like going to the links, there's even more information there. Some videos too, I think.
Follow-up questions? No, I dug through it. I like the modern version of the report, so that we're not printing out 40 pages.
I know, isn't that cool? She's so good. The executive director's amazing.
Awesome.
And it is really good to see that. Like, I'm glad we get those reports, actually, because I think it really helps to fill in the picture more. So we're trying to think about
Programs, services.
Yeah, for all the students. So it's very helpful to see that.
Okay, moving on. So we have agenda item number 11, which is superintendent evaluation goals. So Dr. Girardi, it's been a long process. We've gone through a visioning process with the school committee members. We did some drafting, we did some finalizing. We handed the finalized ideas over to you, and you went forward and proposed some goals to us. I also, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, I do want to compliment you on responding to the feedback I gave you the other evening following the National Honor Society event. I gave you some feedback that I wanted to see more measurement in them with very specific measurable objectives. And I appreciate that there's been some substantive changes since the last time I looked at it. Mauro, I know you and Dawn were heavily involved in this process of getting us here, and I want to thank you for that as well. So Dr. Girardi, let's talk about your goals, please.
So, actually, the thoughtful process that the school committee did was so concrete, it actually made this very easy for me, quite frankly. So, and some of these goals we've been working on, year after year. It's important to improve communication. It's important to do some of these things, but you really helped make it concrete. So I have to thank you. So my professional practice goal is the superintendent will be the front-facing leadership, and you'll notice a lot of the words that were directly from the document that you provided are in here.
Yep.
So the front-facing leadership of the district, including less visible responsibilities in the areas of budget and negotiations. The 3 areas of measurement are the superintendent and his team will develop a budget book based on various stakeholder input to identify for the town a level-funded, level-service, and requested service budget. The superintendent and his team will identify cost savings and revenue-generating proposals to the budget subcommittee. The superintendent will lead the school committee negotiations subcommittee, certified bargaining agreement negotiations with the 2 unions that have expiring CBAs this year, which will be measured by logging the amount of negotiation meetings that take place, with hopefully the culminating goal of an approved agreement with both unions as soon as possible, because sometimes there's a lot of meetings, as Justin, who's been on the negotiating subcommittee, knows. But they're important and it's great to do. So that's tied to the superintendent's rubric, which I sent you a link to on the Department of Ed.
Yep.
That's tied to indicator 2D, laws, ethics, and politics, understands and complies. What's that?
Policies.
Oh, policies, politics.
But it's all politics.
Whoops, a little slip there.
No worries. Carry on.
Understands and complies with state and federal laws and mandates, school committee policies, collective bargaining agreements, and ethical guidelines. So that's the standard that I will try to help use to measure what I do and provide you with the data you need and the measurement that you need.
Okay.
The key actions, again, are the key actions and foreseeable benchmarks. I changed it to foreseeable benchmarks. Those, again, are some of them, I made sure anything that you had written ended up there.
Okay.
I added a couple. And the reason why I put foreseeable is that I have ideas that there may be other things that are relevant for me to bring in as you do your mid-year evaluation, that I'll be able to say, oh, this aligns with this goal. I did, hopefully I did X, Y, and Z,
Okay.
Other things that you'll appreciate as additional benchmarks. But for now, the key actions are that the superintendent will lead by example through the positive energy bus theme from this year's summer read and find ways to improve collaboration. The superintendent will provide the budget subcommittee support during the budget process. The superintendent will be the lead administrator on all union negotiations. And then the benchmarks will be the superintendent will provide greater opportunities for collaboration with the unions and town departments through crisis management and other opportunities for collaboration. The superintendent will provide budget subcommittee cost savings and revenue generating measures with analysis of the pros and cons, including potential service impacts. And that was a very important thing that you wanted me to make sure I get. And the superintendent will conduct successful contract and legal negotiations, including dispute resolution, including paraprofessional, custodial staff, and parent issues.
Okay.
So those are, for that first goal, I don't know if you have any questions, or, again, I've gotten a lot of feedback. I do appreciate many of the school committee members have given me feedback between when I first started this draft and as I was trying to develop it. So I do appreciate all that and all the help.
Yeah. I think at this point, we've looked at these pretty extensively.
Okay.
So, just going through them, we'll share them with the community as
Sure.
we're doing tonight, and then hopefully move forward.
All right. The student learning goal is review and communicate instruction K through 12 with an emphasis on curriculum in grades 6 through 8. The areas of measurement for this goal will be found on the Maynard Public Schools curriculum website. Currently, there are very few active links on the new website. By the end of the school year, there will be approximately 15 links with very descriptive curriculum framework and other curriculum-related content that will support data-informed instruction. And one of the school committee members talked to me about that, so that was in addition to what you had given me. They had just had a concern that we really have to get, we have this wonderful new website, let's use it as a communication tool. And so I thought that was a good way to measure, because it'll be something very tangible that people can see, and it will hopefully help parents understand, math, the math curriculum frameworks say that students in pre-K will learn the numbers between 0 and 10. In first grade, they learn the numbers between 1 and 100. I mean, it's very concrete information that I think parents would appreciate. So that's the student learning goal, and the standard that I will use is indicator 1E. Data-informed decision-making using multiple sources of evidence related to student learning, including state, district, and school assessment results, and growth data to inform school and district goals and improve organizational performance, educator effectiveness, and student learning, which I'm super excited about. And again, some of that data, I don't believe we have a link to the 2018 MCAS results. That's the kind of thing that needs to go on the website so parents can just go and see and compare and learn about what we're doing. And I think there's other areas where I'll be able to provide extra data that I think parents and school committee and teachers will appreciate. And I'm really excited because we have some great staff who are excited about using data too. And we have common planning time now where they can actually do a lot of that work, which they didn't have the time to do in the past. So it's really an exciting year for an instructional standpoint. So some of the key actions would be the technology director will create a curriculum tab in the news feed section on the main homepage and individual school page to provide areas where new and exciting curriculum and instruction information can be shared with the community. So in addition to what I was talking about on the curriculum webpage, one of the things we don't do is talk about all the wonderful things that we have going on. And so we've talked about communication, that's going to be a later goal, but this is an opportunity to meld two together, which is we have, I can't tell you the number of kids I see walking around with violins with big grins on their face. We have a new strings program. I can't tell you the work that the three computers, well, I do tell you, because I told you about a conference I went to with the computer science teachers. But having that curriculum is new, and we need to celebrate that. And so this is one key action that I think will be very visible and can be measured, that you can see all of these new programs that are pretty amazing. The next key action would be data and input will be sought from families and students about new programs to determine if the effect of these programs is developing a love of learning, because that was important to the school committee. So we'll be doing some surveys about those programs, because we want to make sure if you're implementing something, I think you want to know, you want that data back from parents, is it worth it? So that's one area where we're going to be getting different data that we haven't gotten in the past about very specific programs. The third key action would be the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and teacher leaders will continue to develop content for new curriculum, news feeds, and website page updates. So it's not just going to be me. We're also going to have the assistant superintendent and the teacher leaders, and I think it's important because, especially in curriculum, I mean, we're so blessed. Actually, in all of the areas, we're blessed to have a great technology director. We're blessed to have a great assistant superintendent. And so some of these goals can't just be done by me, and we've talked about that. Really, it's the staff that I oversee. But in some ways, I can be helpful to them, and certainly they'll be doing a lot of the work too. So that's one area where they'll be doing some of the work. As far as foreseeable benchmarks, the curriculum news posts about new programs will be added by the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and designees on the homepage school news feeds. Content will be added to the curriculum webpage. The principals in each building will survey parents about new programs and find other data to determine new program effectiveness. The 2017 Massachusetts Curriculum Frameworks for ELA and Math at each grade level will be available on the Maynard Curriculum website for parents to know what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. And the Maynard community will have an easy link to the DESE 2018 MCAS results for Maynard. So I kind of went ahead of myself when I talked about that, but those are some of the foreseeable benchmarks, and I really do believe that this is an area that's going to be fun, and there'll be other benchmarks that we'll be able to hopefully share. So that's the second goal.
Okay.
Under student learning. So the third goal is the district goal on ensuring effective communication among all stakeholders. In alignment with the Communication Task Force goal, the administrative team's communication will be improved and measured through evidence that will be collected electronically through the weekly email communications, news posts, Facebook posts, and live feed posts. Generally, the superintendent and principals of L&O will be sending at least one email communication and one news post a week to parents and families, as well as parent procedures and celebrations and promotions and events listed in the key actions and benchmarks. And so, again, this is an area where a lot of the superintendent's goals are me working with different people and putting these goals into their evaluation plan so that we are working on it together. So this is, communication has been a big area for the leadership and operation principals, and I'm really excited about how well they're doing this. And so we've already started really focusing on this, and obviously there are some concrete tasks that the school committee requested, and those are in the key actions and benchmarks. So I'm going to go over the key actions. The superintendent and administrative team will develop a rubric and execute timely, accurate, and professional communication. The superintendent and administrative team will create a simple step-by-step procedure document for parents for the IEP process. The superintendent and administrative team will celebrate and promote the Maynard educational experience, opportunities, and program availability. And then the foreseeable benchmarks are the superintendent will improve the website with the development of a calendar of expectations for the upcoming year, including teacher assignments, supply lists, etc. A simpler document will be developed than the legalese in the parent's procedural safeguard. This document will provide parents information on the basics, like the process of an IEP, what you can expect when you are transitioning to a different school in the system. And then the third foreseeable benchmark is, in order to promote programs, scheduled updates for all grades and annual showcases will be planned and conducted. That's not a correct sentence, so I think I need to fix that sentence for you. But it's talking about the things that I think the school committee relayed, that you do want us to highlight or promote. I think it just
That's right.
promote programs, schedule, yeah, just it has to start with promote. I don't know why I put in order to. Oh, does it read right?
If you pause at the comma, it works.
Oh, I'm just talking too fast. Okay. Whew, well, there was a lot there.
That was a lot of words.
Yeah, so.
So thank you. Discussion from members of the board?
So I think it's addressed in the student learning goal, and sorry that I didn't bring it to attention earlier. And I just want to make sure, so, and tonight was a perfect example. We had a great presentation about dyslexia. You know that we've got the Spanish immersion program. We've got the special ed program in that, and sometimes I feel like the core curriculum for the students just going through the system, we're not doing anything to improve their education. We've got so many niches, which are wonderful, and we need to, you know, really work with every student, but I sort of feel like the middle, you know, student isn't improving. We're not doing anything to improve their education. I think it's addressed in the student learning goals.
It is.
It just says review. It doesn't say anything about improving. Like one of the main theme that came out of your parent forum was continuous improvement. That was the main theme. And I'm not getting that sense here, and I just want that to be incorporated somewhere.
That was definitely part of what, it seemed like, I think that's part of what you're implying, but for us to be more explicit.
I just want it to be more explicit. And I know we sort of deal with it with grades 6 through 8, and you talk about K through 12, but there's no word of continuous improvement.
At some point,
MCAS, whether it's different assessments, so that's all I just want to.
Well, it's funny because at some point I did have the word improvement in there, and I'm really excited because, as I've shared with you before, I think we have some new staff that are really going to help us. There's a renewed energy in focusing on data to improve instruction, but more importantly, teachers need time. And the fact that we have the time this year, I think that you will see key standards and benchmarks around the data that's being used and K through 12, but also very specifically in 6 through 8 because of the concerns for the Fowler. And I'm really excited that I'll be able to share a lot of around that. So continuous improvement, I'll find a way to work that in there.
Yeah, if you could, just because because I do think this is going to be an exciting year.
Yeah.
And I want accolades to be able to.
Well, we want to be able to document it and measure it, right?
Exactly.
So,
I think for all students, so that you have
Right,
the-
for all students, maybe, yeah.
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 I want to see it.
And it would be under that
Because
student
that-
learning goal.
yes. And that's where I do plan on addressing that, so.
Part of the, where it's saying to, developing the love of learning.
Oh, that's true too. That was part of that.
That was, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, because that's going to be different.
Yes, it is different, but
Yeah.
it is, I feel
It's
like
going to be
it is
different for
part of-
different children and different learners.
Yeah.
And that's part of the,
Well, the other piece that addresses it, Mary, is the fact that we haven't visually pointed out the curriculum frameworks in the past. Our curriculum website was not good before we built it. Now we just kind of rolled it into this one that's still not great. We need to develop it so that parents can look at it and say, this is the curriculum standards for this grade level. This is what I can expect my children to learn. And teachers can go back and refresh it too. So, so there's going to be a lot of work around that. And that's where it'll come into it. So it was thought of in there. And I did try to work the word improvement in. That's funny. So I'll be sure to update that and share that with you. Yeah.
thank you. And one other thing that I think comes up in both student learning goals, first of all, I think you did a really nice job trying to take everything and to put it into one and have it align with the standards and with creating some actionable items and things that we can really tangibly look at, and I appreciate that. So there's just ensuring effective communication and also in the student learning and possibly, but my brain is short circuiting, so possible in the first one too, is just involving the collaborators, like the school council, community group, CPAC, wherever it makes sense in this. So say you're doing a survey that relates to the program that falls under children served by CPAC, then that would be something, look at this, whatever the surveys are going to be used to evaluate that program, have representatives that are looking at that.
Yeah, with key constituents.
Yeah, thank you. So that's one thing that just occurred to me, and I think that would fall both under looking at student learning goals and then also in relation to effective communication for all stakeholders, like having people involved with developing the IEP process, document, etc. So that's
Well,
just,
in fact, I think it was at a meeting when the CPAC said, don't reinvent the wheel. We have some models that we can share with you, right? So that would be the kind of collaboration that I'd welcome, right? Why not, why reinvent the wheel when there's a lot of good models out there?
yeah, and I figured
So I did appreciate that when CPAC mentioned that.
you
Yeah.
would want to do, you would end up doing that, but it's nice to just have that explicit in here for everyone to be able to see, and then for us to be able to have that as part of our reflection as we move forward.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not anything earth-shattering, but just thought it'd be nice if it's explicit.
No, good points. They were discussed, but they
Yeah,
maybe didn't make it into writing.
Right, and I think it's some of just the key components of all this, is trying to distill it down. The process, so thank you. You've been involved.
Yeah, I shared, but I also really like how you did, I know, when we first started talking about it, there was just so much to try and really, break down and kind of funnel it all into. I was surprised that there were just 3, because it just seemed like a whole lot more than that.
But there was a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
As you can now see how they connect to each other.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, I don't know that we can move to approve them necessarily because there was a couple of recommended suggestions, so we'll revisit it, if that's okay. Or we could vote to approve with the suggested recommendations.
Can I ask a question, Kimmy?
So,
Because if you all approve now, then it doesn't matter, like the question.
So-
The comment we made. So I'm not trying, maybe you can go back and approve after, but if you do it now, then it really doesn't matter.
So I'm not opposed to it, but here's where I'm at on this. we've had multiple opportunities for members of the community to provide feedback. We've discussed it multiple times in meetings over the last 6 months since we evaluated Dr. Girardi. And I feel like we've taken the feedback, we've listened, we've implemented it, we've been very critical, very constructive, we've gone through multiple rewrites. So I'm willing to entertain it, but at some point we do have to approve them because we owe it to Dr. Girardi to have goals so that we can evaluate him. So sure, let's listen to some feedback and then we're going to move on. Yeah. Sure.
Hi. So I was wondering, I know this came up in our parent forum, so that's why I'm wondering if there's an opportunity here to incorporate this, and I was hoping to see it, was about teacher feedback and how that could be incorporated in Dr. Girardi's goals in some way. I know a few people suggested, or there's really right now no way for teachers to provide like a survey on an annual basis. So that was one thought. I don't know where the best way that could fit in. I thought maybe under communication, because the indication here, specifically under the communication goal, is that will be measured through evidence collected electronically through weekly emails, news posts, Facebook posts, and live feeds. What about feedback collected from parent surveys through the school council? What about opportunity maybe for teacher feedback through an annual survey? Also, what about feedback through special education survey, which hasn't been implemented yet? The other thing I wanted to mention or just question is, I don't see a lot of collaboration noted within a lot of these goals. And Bethlen, you did touch about when these initiatives about curriculum, I'd really hope that intentionally collaborating with the stakeholders is really more prevalent than sometimes where it's not noted here. I don't know if an assumption can be made it's going to happen, but I think maybe it would be beneficial to have it clearly indicated within the goals, whether it be CPAC or school council in those respect. The other part I wanted to ask, because again, it came up at the parent forum, was about the school council, how feedback from that collaboration is going to be taken into account for the district, because that's one of the few ways that we have teacher-parent participation at the school level. So I guess that's kind of open-ended questions, but something to consider within the goals, please.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify that I wasn't trying to slow any kind of process down. It's just that it's so important for Dr. Girardi to feel confident that he's getting where the community wants.
Right, and
So,
I do want to clarify, like, my frustration arises from the fact that we're trying to codify so many of the things that he's already doing, almost as a way of like reassuring ourselves that they're going to get done. And there becomes a point in time when the goals may become unmanageable or untenable or unimplementable. So I'm trying to be very careful with how much we're trying to put into this document so that it still becomes workable.
I agree with you. That's exactly my point. So in attempting to put so many things into this document, I'm reading at it and I'm going, I need to read it again. Not because it's badly written, that's not the problem here. When I think of SMART goals, it's very specific, right? This is what we're going to achieve at the end of this goal. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, and that's okay because that's always valuable, right? So I'm having a hard time with the student learning goal because I can't figure out what it's going to, how. When I read it, it reads like a communication goal. We're going to put these links on the website. We're going to make this data available, right, which is already available. We're just going to make it easier for parents and teachers to access it. So I read it and I think communication. And the standard listed is data-informed decision-making, which means you take the data and inform the school, and you organize in order to improve, right? In order to improve student learning and teacher. So yes, I agree that these are valuable, but I think these are communication and not necessarily improving how well teachers are teaching and student learning. If that makes, I hope it makes sense to you what I'm trying to say.
I'm following you through.
You're following me through?
Yeah.
And it's valuable, right? We want to look at the curriculum. We want to make the curriculum better. We want to improve for the mainstream kids and all the other kids. But when I look at this, I think it's valuable as a communication goal. And I would like, personally, I would like to see the student learning goal being a SMART goal that focuses on exactly this, right? Data-driven instruction. How can we organize the school? How can we support teachers? What can we do at district and school level in order to improve student learning, which is the standard that is listed here?
So I think, well, so here's part of the problem, and that is, as we talked about, a lot of that's handled by other folks, and what the school committee needs is validation that some of the decisions you've made around curriculum, like the new programs, are they effective this year? Surveying the parents about the programs to make sure the programs are effective. Those are the kind of things that you tend to get involved with, whereas the evaluation that I would do over the assistant superintendent in charge of curriculum and instruction assessment, and that she would do over the principals of curriculum and instruction assessment, would be geared more towards the data-driven decision-making and processes that are going to be put in place, and they are. So, and it's in there that they are going to be used for that. And we were talking about that is something that's going to happen. But again,
Do we have, so if it's, I do think like being able to describe how this will feed into improvement, or what could be helpful, a little more on how this feeds into improvement by doing this, the student learning goal that you're doing, and how that, the other pieces that are in place. But then I do think if there is a way for us to be able to share what the overall, if you're overseeing the assistant superintendent and all the leadership around the curriculum and instruction, I think do you end up having goals about what we'd like to see improve within a year? Like about how different areas we want to target and things that we want to do to try to improve, and is that something then that we could share?
so like the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and teacher leaders will continue to develop content for new curriculum, or what I'm thinking of things that they'll be doing, like curriculum mapping and those sort of things, those will be coming online as well. And that's where teachers and teacher leaders are working on not only the curriculum standards, but how are they going to do them in the classroom? Right. What novels they'll use in order to teach English 11. Those are the type of things that are going to be coming as well.
Right.
So the hope is that by standardizing curriculum, mapping the curriculum, making the curriculum more uniform, you're evening out the learning expectations for all students.
Correct.
Horizontally and vertically.
Yeah.
So I had a comment when I was trying to verbalize before, and this is probably way too specific, but, and it was under the student learning goal. Data collected from assessments to improve instruction at each grade level, resulting, for instance, in improved MCAS or something like that. I don't know if that's too specific, but that's sort of
That is a SMART goal because it's measurable, it's tangible.
You can actually see it, yeah.
That's exactly a SMART goal.
But I didn't know if it was too specific at each grade level. You know, and again, it speaks to that core curriculum piece that I feel like we're sort of not really focused on maybe as much. And maybe we are. We just don't see it. It's just not tangible. So, and I don't, I'm sorry.
All right, so we'll work it.
I'm sorry, this is the first time we are seeing this because we weren't involved with the group.
And
that
I
was helping
didn't
with it.
realize it had been updated today either, because I was working on it from earlier this week, but that's okay, yeah.
I think that you got it in here, it's just you have in the back of your mind the work that's gonna be behind what the part that you do, Bob. I think having some, given that you are gonna oversee all of that work, it would still be helpful to have some of that background and have some sense of, these are the areas, if it is the MCAS scores improving by a certain amount, if it is X, I think we did talk about though, that we don't think.
No, and
per se
I
that's
just
the
use
thing
that as an
this year is
example. I
going to happen.
don't know if that's the
Yeah.
end all be all, but something tangible that we can really sink our teeth into.
Does that make sense?
I mean, 99%.
Always open to
of-
suggestions.
Yeah, 99% of it you've got here. It's just the,
All right, so we'll hold off on approving.
When's that next meeting?
15th. All right. Citizens' comments?
Hi, Jessica O'Toole. I'm just going to switch gears a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Halloween social that was here, which I think was a great event, and I think the student council, I think, is the one that put it on, did a really, a lot of work to go into that. But there was a problem for students that needed extra support at that event, in that, like, as a parent, I found out about it on Tuesday afternoon, and I immediately tried to figure out if there would be somebody there to help my son. And I know there were other parents in that situation. We didn't find out until after school was out on Friday afternoon if, like, I didn't know if I could tell my kid he could go to it on Monday afternoon, which I think you can understand is pretty stressful for the families and the kids that have been anticipating this. So I was wondering, like, what the process is as far as planning these things and planning for those support needs, at the front end, so it's not such a scramble and there aren't, you're not stuck in limbo. So.
So,
Building level, right, Bob?
well, it's the special ed department. It's wrapped in contractual obligations because you're hiring people to work beyond their school day. There's a lot involved in it, and there was a challenge with this particular event, but those have to be worked out individually with parents because they're individual challenges.
Well, I mean, I think our paras are wonderful, and I know that they all want to be available, but it may just be that there's not enough notice. So if we could put something in when we're planning these events, so it's easier for everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that feedback.
Sure. Would parents come with their kids?
No, they have.
They have, okay.
That's been a solution when we can't find adequate staffing.
Good solution, yeah.
Okay, moving on. Members' comments and questions? I've got nothing.
I was going to mention the conference next week, but that has already been mentioned. A couple days ago, I got an email from Mrs. Hayward mentioning that she got a MEAF grant, which is fantastic, where she's bringing in Mrs. Santillo, the old Green Meadow
Yes, our teacher.
to do a We Honor Our Ancestors project.
Cool.
Which is the genres of literature class that some of the kids are taking, which I think is fantastic.
200 students up there taking it. That's great. She told us.
So I'm
That's
super
cool.
excited about that. Can't wait to see what comes out of that.
And they're already talking about how to incorporate it potentially next year, she and Sean Perlman, about, where it's a sort of a pilot this year and that, how, but yeah. So
Get an ongoing thing. Nice.
Okay, the insider scoop on that stuff there. The casino night for in
Saturday night.
Association,
Saturday night.
It's not too late, if anyone wants to go out for a good time. It might be too late for babysitting though. clear on that. They offer babysitting services. My son mentioned the energy bus the other day, who is a second grader at Green Meadow. He's like, oh yeah, we talk about it all the time. I'm like, oh really? Okay. So he was talking about the energy bus, and he was made up a song about it. So that's how I realized. And then the other thing was, I did want to just say thank you for, I feel like it's tricky when we're trying to provide feedback on this level. We're trying to look at what's on the level of individual experience that's rising to system level. And it can be hard when you're a parent up at this microphone in this kind of meeting, being recorded, to try to verbalize that and do that work. And I feel like we're trying to listen and trying to, like, we really all, there are times when I'm still processing, so you may not hear more from us right now, but we're processing, and we do take it all into account. And I do appreciate the way you were able to kind of help distill it down yourself to trying to say what the more systems level thing would be for us to consider. And I think that's a process and I really just appreciate us continuing those conversations and trying to get at those things, because it's tricky. And it's hard with individual level, and trying to figure out like what's actually like a larger kind of moment thing that we need to address on a larger picture versus happening for this person. It's unfortunate, we need to do everything we can, but it's all tricky. So I appreciate those conversations and trying to look at how to rise that up to the systems level here when we can, and even if it's a little messy.
Can I just say something? Because I'm actually kind of upset, because
if we're having a school event and certain students don't know if they can go or not, that's not something to be worked out individually with that person's parent. As a school district, we should want everybody to be able to attend this event, and everybody should be able to participate in it. And when you bring it down to that individual level, it's telling me that, like, oh well, it didn't work out for your kid. And that's not fair to do to parents, and it's not fair to do to kids, and I understand there's staffing issues, but it is a larger consideration, and the goal should be that everybody has what they need to attend these events, and it shouldn't be,
But I don't think we said that was an individual event. You asked about planning and the time.
Dr. Girardi, you said that has to be worked out with individual parents.
As part of the process. You talked about the process. The process is to work out with parents to provide the services. And this has been happening since I've been here. Whenever we run an event, we include all students, or we don't have the event. And that has happened in the past. So there is a process. The principals and special ed directors, special ed department chairs work on providing the services that all students need to attend every single event. There is a process. Whether it's timely or not, we can review, but there is a process. And in this case, the timeliness came right down to the last minute.
So in the future, can you work with the building level administrators and the people that are planning these events to approach the paras and the support staff members who might want to pick up the opportunity to support the students on the week?
Sometimes it's not as easy as that. So I think there is a time factor that is considered,
right.
But sometimes then if you can't find the staffing, then there's enough time, because I know there's times when they'll actually post and try to get people from not just within the district. So it isn't like it's being done at the last minute, but sometimes there are challenges. In fact, we've had a lot of challenges with staffing recently, and so when there's challenges with staffing, then you have to figure out a way to do it. And so I know that it's done as soon as an event is considered. There are people in place to try and make these things help figure them out, but sometimes they don't get figured out easily. However, we would never run a program if we can't provide it for all students. I know that was the last director of student services felt that way, and there was times when she was here that she would say, Bob, if we can't do this, we can't run the program, right? And we wouldn't if we couldn't. Somehow it usually always works out, but I know the previous director of student services felt that way and would make sure, because it's their job to make sure we comply for all students. And I know that the current director of student services also felt that way, especially in this particular instance where, she was nervous right down to Monday morning, whether this thing should happen or not. And she was trying to help.
Sort of sounds like we just need more time, like maybe was the event not given enough notice, is that?
I don't know what happened on the building level. I think, as a parent, I found out about it on Tuesday afternoon for a Monday, right after school event. So I was wondering if the time was an issue. But I think also there's a communication piece in there, where if, you know, if that's the situation, then having some updates to the parents and some reassurance that, like, you know, we're working on this and we have some options and it's looking good, but we don't have a specific person we can tell you yet, which.
My understanding was that Carol was having those conversations. There was about 3 students who were, eventually, she was able to work it out with all 3 parents, and was able to get a solution to the problem, but that she was in constant communication with the parents, trying to figure out how to resolve that. That's my understanding.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to bring it to the attention, and then I just did feel like sometimes in special ed, things get kind of taken down to the individual level and you don't address the larger concern. And I just want it.
Since you were feeling that way, Jessica, I'm glad you came back up. Thank you.
My understanding was this was a yearly event, like this wasn't the first time this Halloween social has occurred?
Okay.
So wouldn't that
It's the first
mean
time my child went to.
there's a fair amount of notice that it would happen again? And then also, I don't think it was only 3 students, because I hadn't spoken to anybody but my child having issues with this event, and she did as well, so I'm not sure that it's a 3-student issue. That's all.
Concerning, you know, I didn't realize until, I think it was probably Friday, that they were actually going to have it, so.
Well, I do think some is in relation to our communication goal and looking at communication, that and looking at collaborating with people we need to make sure things are happening, and that happening on the building level, and just continuing to look at that continuous improvement. It sounds like they were doing the due diligence from what you understand that they could and what they understood they needed to do with people that identified themselves as needing that. But it does also sound like people may have self-selected out depending on the circumstances, as feeling like it wasn't going to be able to happen. But it's also on the building level. There's looking at that on the building level, which we don't particularly get involved in, but on the systems level, as far as making sure that we know that those processes and communication are in place, is definitely something that we can be looking at with our third goal, making sure that's happening.
I'm wondering if we sort of have to give Dan a little bit of slack because he's brand new. I wonder when he found out that, you know, these things are happening, and nobody told me until a week before, and let's put it together. Kind of thing, so we might have
But that's
to
part of
give
the process. If we find that out, then we know, okay, then we got this covered for next time.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know if that's,
Well, I feel like that is part of the communication, where we've talked about there needs to be a schedule of, you know, these are the things that you're planning every year.
Yep.
And, right, and so if you back up, this is the date that we do it on, then, you know, a couple weeks before, we need to let parents know, or there needs to be some sort of schedule in place of when, you know, the people that are in charge of putting these things on can start preparing.
Yeah,
So I know
definitely part of the
that's-
calendar.
Yes.
Yeah, need, for sure. And I've been saying that for a long time, so I appreciate you putting that down.
Other comments or questions? All right, so at this point in time, I need to notify the members of the community that we are ending the open session in the interest of entering executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21. Number 2, we can only enter by a roll call vote. Mauro?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Bethany? Myself, yes.